welcome to episode 46 of Random Encounter, the RPG fan podcast. This is the big E3 spectacular whoop-de-doo show, even though there really wasn't a lot to talk about at E3. Anywho, I'm your host, Robert Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me today, we have the... Steven, I can't even think of a good introduction for you. I'm that tired.
Here's an introduction for me. I am better together.
Oh, goodness.
Was that were you making fun of Reggie?
I was making fun of Reggie. I am Steven Talus on the boards.
Oh, boy. And Steven got to go to E3 along with two other esteemed gentlemen who are joining us today. We have the man, the Witcher lover, the big man on campus.
That's all you know about me, Rob.
Yeah, that's all I know about you is you just love The Witcher and Dark Souls.
Kyle E. Miller.
And we also have, welcoming back from earlier in the podcast, and the indie lover in us all, we have...
Neil Chandran, Dincrest on the boards.
Okay, so I'm jealous of all of you bastards because you got to go to E3 while I sat at home on boring faculty meetings and got to watch the...
Rob.
What?
We kept talking about how we couldn't wait to have you at E3 next year.
Oh, come on. I would be terrible at E3.
Well, yeah, you would, but it would be awesome.
No. I would
ask John to
complain constantly.
That's why I want to go to an appointment with you. Well, here's my game. You'd be like, why does it look like crap? You guys think you'd see an MMO, you'd be like, do you guys think you're done? Because you're definitely not.
No, I mean, it was a very interesting E3 to watch just from home. Just a quick aside was, all I got to see were the press conferences, which bored me to tears, except The Last of Us did look awesome. I will say that. Good job, Naughty Dog. And then I got to see like all the videos online, game trailers, joystick, all of the different trailers for like Dishonored and other stuff, and seeing the same builds over and over again. And the big thing that I was really struck by for E3, and I didn't realize it until I started looking at our own coverage and realizing, oh my God, maybe our site's going to do some coverage. I was sitting there going, I didn't see any RPGs. And then I looked on our coverage and I was like, oh, no. There were a lot of RPGs at E3. They were just back behind closed doors or not being talked about during press conferences. But there was a lot of stuff, apparently.
And that's the thing. If I had just been home watching the conferences and checking out the spotty coverage, from other places, I would have been like, wow, this E3 kind of sucked. But having been there, I'm all excited about a bunch of games I didn't even know were coming.
Same
that
here.
was there were other games, there were great AAA games, but there were a lot of games that maybe don't get as much attention, especially by bigger sites, that I was really glad we covered because they look awesome.
Yeah, I mean, and there are some that I think are just as good as the marquee titles. I'm sure Kyle will back me up on this one. Dust and an Elysian Tale coming out soon on XBLA. If I hadn't known it was from an independent developer, I would have thought it was the next Vanillaware game because it was that freaking good.
Yeah, I think that's my top pick of the show, I think, and it was surprising. I had seen one preview, I think it was on our site, one preview for it, and it looked kind of interesting, but when I played it, it was phenomenal.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about Dust, because I did not see anything on this game.
It's a 2D action RPG, side-scrolling action RPG, with levels, experience. There's equipment. There are multiple paths, but the best thing about it is the combat, which to me it was like I hardly touched the ground when fighting enemies. The main character just has this amazing ability to stay in the air, and you can just do all kinds of crazy attacks and special attacks. And I kept finding new and more interesting ways to kill enemies, and it was just ridiculously fun.
And there was and the control was super fluid. There was and even when there was a ton of stuff happening, I didn't experience any slowdown.
Yeah, it ran really well. Controls were tight. I mean, it looked fantastic. And I'm most excited about that, I think, out of anything, even though it's just a little indie game.
What's the platform for it?
It's part of the Summer Arcade series.
Is that
For
a
Xbox.
Oh, that's an Xbox thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So that means we might maybe see it on PC at some point, because I know a lot of those titles
Yeah.
end up coming over.
Probably eventually.
Okay. All right, so that's Dust. What else really struck you guys about E3? Like, let's just rapid fire these games. We didn't have a Mass Effect or a Skyrim or Deus Ex to go. Steven's sitting here begging and pleading to talk about something, and he put a freaking smiley face on Skype. What is it, Steven?
I didn't beg and plead. I was just trying to help plan.
Can I go?
Well, it's appointment, and we covered 2 graphic adventures that we literally knew nothing about, because this is the company that made the Whispered World, and
Awesome,
that
good.
was a pretty rad game. But one of the games we saw, they both look cool, but the one I'm in particular most excited about is the Dark Eye: Chains of Satanov. They're a German developer, and the game is apparently out in Germany already, but it'll be out June 22nd on Steam. And the first thing Neil and I noticed is that the game is completely hand-drawn, and it looks freaking amazing. Like, just everything, even your characters. It's not like a lot of games where they do these really lush backgrounds and these horrible-looking 3D character models. Like, the characters themselves are hand-drawn and animated. Now, to offset that, the animations for the characters are a little bit rough here and there, like kind of things like sort of transition weirdly, but the backgrounds are so well animated that it's just amazing to look at. And the game itself, it's point and click adventure. The dialogue was pretty sharp. It was translated well. We laughed at a couple of times. The main character is pretty snarky, and some of the puzzles they showed us were really cool. And what's cool is at a certain point in the game, the main character, who has like this telekinetic ability to blow stuff up from far away, which is used in puzzles, you meet up with a girl who starts following you, and she has the power, she has magic that can repair stuff. So in addition to like inventory puzzles and the sort of things you see in those games a lot, you also get those 2 abilities. And we were shown one puzzle where the protagonist was chained up inside a room and about to die, and the 2 characters had to work together to solve a puzzle to basically free him. And it looked like, if you're into that genre, it really is something you should be like having your eyes on, because I'm amazed at just how great every aspect of it looked.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Whispered World, so I didn't get to see those games personally, but I'm pretty excited for them too.
Cool. So now, Steven, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Because I got conflicting information.
Yeah.
Because
I think I know what you're going to say.
Oh yeah, it's coming here. So I get this wonderful preview from Steven and this awesome text message during E3 that sends my heart aflutter, where Steven says that Dark Souls on PC will run at 60 frames per second and Blighttown has been fixed. And it was as if a flock of butterflies had come in, a crown around my head. If anybody gets the TV show reference I'm making right now, I will be really, really proud of you. Please send messages to RPG Fan. And I was very, very excited. And then you broke my heart.
Well, I can't say I broke your heart. Unless I was outright lied to, I believe I was with Dave. And I went to the Dark Souls booth. I started watching it. And I started talking to the guy. And I said, this and that, the new content, and everything that I wrote in my preview. And then I said, how about the frame rate? I go, I heard it was a pretty bare bones port. He said, Blighttown is fixed. That was verbatim what he said. He said, Blighttown is fixed. So unless he was feeding me blatantly inaccurate information, which I suppose is possible, I was told that the frame rate in the PC version will be fixed. You're not going to see really elaborate tweaks and sliders to make the game look better. You won't see higher res textures. But I was told that you can run it up to 1080p resolution, 1920 by 1080, and that Blighttown would be fixed if your PC could handle it. And then, literally, my preview went up, and then the next day, the developers were like, yeah, we don't know what we're doing, and we're pretty sure it's still going to suck.
Yeah, that frustrated me a little bit. I mean, I'm trying to take that with a grain of salt, because if you remember last year when we did the E3 show, we didn't really know a lot about Dark Souls. I mean, a lot was still. I apologize to all the listeners for my cats and the constant bell ringing that goes on in my apartment. I'm sorry for that. But if you remember, like during E3 last year, we didn't really know a lot about Dark Souls, and there was a lot of conflicting information going out there about whether or not there were going to be character classes, how the magic system was going to be handled. Nobody knew what the hell humanity was. So I'm trying to take that with a grain of salt, but that has me a little bit nervous about this port. It seems like they still can't figure out if it's going to be games for Windows Live or not.
I don't know, but definitely something to keep an eye on.
Neil, do you like?
Look cool.
What's that?
The boss they were showing looked cool.
Was this the?
Yes.
Was this the thing with the? Was this the Hangina boss that I like to call it?
No, it was the big white wolf monster boss. Like it looked like a chimera white wolf thing.
Yeah, chimera kind of thing.
Oh, I'm so excited for this game. Neil, have you played some Dark Souls yet? Have you joined the dark side?
No, I haven't. I was everywhere else on the show floor.
All right. Not that I don't love to talk about Dark Souls, but let's talk about some newer stuff. Let's try to move on.
Okay, fine.
All right. When I was at the Focus Home Interactive booth, they showed us, 3 games. There was one game was The Testament of Sherlock Holmes, which was like a point and click based on, Sherlock Holmes. Then they showed this other one called Raw Realms of Ancient Wars, which was a very arcadey, like Dungeon Siege 3 Gauntlet style co-op action RPG. But the game that really stood out to me, and it was one of the games I played more, that I kept coming back to play more, was called Of Orcs and Men. It's developed by Cyanide Studios, who did the Game of Thrones RPG, but this is a completely original thing. It's basically they wanted to create an RPG with orcs and goblins, but with a more like adult storyline and everything. The storyline is about like an orc and a goblin who their races are like oppressed because the humans won the war. So now the orc and the goblin are on a quest to kill the human emperor. And thing is, and what I liked about it with the gameplay was that you kind of had to switch between big muscly orc versus the sneaky goblin to get through certain battles or areas and things. For example, if you have a big cluster of enemies, you can have your orc throw the goblin behind enemy lines and then be there to kind of take the brunt of the damage while the goblin can snipe the enemies from behind. And also what I liked was that it's an action RPG, but when you're going through combat menus to maybe change their stances or the attacks they use, it kind of goes into like a bullet time, so it's easy for you to switch out your attacks. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but I thought it was really fun, and and a lot of the dialogue I thought was really good. And yeah, I mean it was one of those games I didn't know about it prior to the show, but now I'm interested.
Okay. So, Of Orcs and Men, what platform are we looking at for that?
PS3, 360, and PC.
Is that a download-only title, or is that going to be like a full $60?
Not sure, but I'm guessing it'll probably be available in both formats.
Okay. All right, more games. Lots of stuff to talk about. Was there a new Final Fantasy?
Actually, yes, I played it.
Wasn't expecting that. Okay, do tell.
It's a mobile Final Fantasy. It's not technically new, but
yeah, I heard about this.
I was surprised by how good it was. It's Final Fantasy Dimensions, which it was called Final Fantasy Legend in Japan, and it came out on iMode phones and stuff. And it's basically Final Fantasy V, but not Final Fantasy V. It's got the job system. It's got a really great touchscreen interface. If you like the 2D Super Nintendo Final Fantasies, you basically should get it, because from what I hear, there's a pretty substantial amount of content in it. I hate that word. The music was fantastic, and it's fast paced, and it has all the customization of the job system. You can set which job commands you want, tons of abilities for every job. I walked up to it and I was like, oh hey, what is this? And then I ended up playing it for like 20 minutes, and it was really fun and really well implemented.
So Square Enix can still make old Final Fantasy games. Is that basically what you're telling me?
Yep.
Was there a new Kingdom Hearts?
Oh gosh. Yeah, Dream Drop Distance was there, and if you like Kingdom Hearts, you will probably like Dream Drop Distance. If you hate Kingdom Hearts, it is everything you hate about the series.
Drunk camera and all.
Oh
It-
god. Oh god.
It functions like Birth by Sleep, where you have a deck of commands, and that gives you a lot of diversity in the attacks. Sora and Riku have two separate sets of types of commands. Like Riku has like really darkness-oriented commands, whereas Sora has like magical and like Keyblade attacks and stuff. And then they've added a thing called free flow actions, which is if you jump and dash in the air, you can bounce off walls to attack. You can grab, you can spin around on poles, and it basically just makes it one step closer to the insanity of a Square Enix cutscene. But when I played it, what's cool is that it really feels like it's not like just random insanity. You have a degree of control over it. So the combat was fun. If you liked Birth by Sleep, it's just souped up Birth by Sleep. I've already reviewed the music. The music is fantastic. So if you are looking for the next Kingdom Hearts game that is, really solid, it's probably going to be that. The only thing I noticed about it is that the frame rate is pretty crappy. It's not awful, but it slows down often enough that I was sitting there wondering why that was happening on the 3DS, which should be more than powerful enough to handle it.
Well, now I have two questions. First question, I forgot. So I'm going to ask the second question. How did the game work with the 3DS not having a second analog stick? I mean, does this thing support CirclePad Pro? Or
from what I understand, it supports CirclePad Pro, but if you've played Kingdom Hearts on the PSP, it works like that. The LNR triggers, when you tap both of them together, it locks onto an enemy, and if you tap R twice, it swings the camera behind you, and then you can rotate the camera with those. And I found it to work. I mean, I've never had a problem with the Kingdom Hearts camera. It's a little bit wacky occasionally, but I suppose maybe if you don't like that series' camera, it won't work. But I felt like I had plenty of control over what was going on and all that.
Okay. So Dream Drop Distance, is that out? This was my first question. Is that out in Japan right now?
It has been out in Japan, I believe, for about 3 months. I think it came out in March.
Okay,
and it will be out
end of
July
summer.
31st.
Okay, that's
and my
close
review
enough.
will be very, very up around that time.
You're gonna over-review it.
I'm not going to over-review it.
We need to stop letting fanboys review games. No more letting me review Souls games, and no more letting you review Kingdom Hearts games. That's enough of that. I'm kidding, Steven. Calm
I'm
down.
going to give it a 99 just because of that.
Oh my god. Okay. Do we want to take a minute to talk about the Square Enix Luminous trailer, whatever their new engine trailer? Do we want to take a minute to talk about that?
Oh, the Agnes Philosophy video?
Yes, the giant, look at us, look at this great animation that we can do, but we don't know how to make a game.
I mean, it looks pretty.
It was very pretty.
I'd watch
I guess
if it was a movie.
See, there you go.
No, that's not true, because we got 2 Final Fantasy movies and they were both crap.
No, one of them was fun. It was just dumb.
Which one?
Advent Children was fun and dumb.
Advent Children was just 2 hours of sitting around waiting to hear One Wing Angel and watch Sephiroth and Cloud fight again.
Well, yeah, but the fights between there were cool. All right, we're digressing.
Okay, anywho, but
I feel like all there is to say about that, I don't know, maybe you guys have more. It looks promising. If they can make a game with it, great. But if they can't, then here we go again.
I was just very disturbed by that. I mean, I know we're getting close to the next console generation already. I mean, we're going to start hearing about it. Everybody's expecting us to see the new consoles next year during the holiday season. And so we're already going to start seeing these rumblings about new technology. I'm sure there's going to be a Final Fantasy VII tech demo at some point for the PlayStation 4 and Durango, or whatever you want to call the new 360. But I was very disturbed considering that we haven't really seen a lot of console titles out of Square Enix, out of their in-house development. We've seen, them release games under their banner with Deus Ex and whatnot, but we've seen 2 Final Fantasy games, no real Kingdom Hearts console games since 2004. What are they doing?
Well, if you think about this, though, the PS1 and PS2 had 3 main Final Fantasies, and
Bushido Blade, Brave Spencer, Musashi,
no, that's
Vagrant
true.
Story,
That's true, but they also
Chrono
those didn't take nearly as much to develop. Chrono Cross, yay.
Yeah.
Anyway, but you're gonna get 3 main Final Fantasies here. I mean,
we're gonna get 13-3.
we're gonna get you got 13, 13-2, and eventually you're going to get Versus 13, which will be retitled Type 1. Promise.
Most likely. But I guess, okay, so the Final Fantasy thing holds true. We're going to get maybe 3 main Final Fantasy games, if you count Final Fantasy 14's launch and then quick abrupt end followed by relaunch. That can count as 2 games, I guess. But we're not seeing a whole lot out of Square Enix, and that's very frustrating for me. And from this developer that I used to be so proud of in terms of, trying new things and releasing, lots of crazy, wacky titles, as I try to make sure that my kitty cat doesn't eat the microphone cord. For them to already be talking about new tech after they spent how many years making the White engine, have they just proven that they're not engine developers, and why should we care about this? I'm not trying to stir the pot deliberately, but that video really ticked me off. I was just like, really, guys? You're once again showing us how good your tech is.
I think with Square Enix, what you really have to keep in mind at this point is, like a lot of Japanese RPG developers, they're moving into handheld. Like, everybody's focusing on that. Like, look, you've got the new Shin Megami Tensei is a handheld game. You have all of the recent Kingdom Hearts games have been handheld. You have, almost everything Atlas has been making RPG-wise has been handheld. Radiant Historia. I mean, it's kind of the way, like, JRPGs are finding their new home on handhelds, and that's sad because I'm sure we'd all love to see HD. It would have been fantastic to see a Shin Megami with the presentation of Catherine, but I don't think that's restricted to Square Enix. All the JRPG developers, all of the JRPG developers are moving handheld, and I think that's because the types of games that they are used to making are better presented on handhelds right now, and I think it's a matter of time before they figure out whatever alchemical combination it takes to make fantastic HD JRPG experiences work.
You could be right there. I mean, first question was SMT4 at the show or no?
Sadly, no.
Okay, so all we've seen is the picture of, like, kind of medieval mixed with future post-apocalyptic. I mean, it's SMT, so it's going to be post-apocalyptic, but they didn't really show a whole lot, and that disappointed me a little bit. I wanted to see, like, an actual reveal. I know Zach was probably sitting at home hoping for a Persona 5 announcement. It didn't happen, but I think, Steven, you're right, and that I want to see a Persona game or a SMT game, main SMT game with, like, the Catherine engine. I think we've seen how great these graphical presentations that we can get out of these new consoles. They're not new anymore, but and it's frustrating that we haven't seen that. I mean, when I put Nocturne into my PS2 to play it, and I just look at it and I'm like, oh my god, this looks horrible. I really wish that
something wrong with your TV. It looks fantastic on my TV.
It does not look good on an HD TV, sir. Like, ugh. And that's frustrating. And so, I think we should move on. Let's get back to more games, but that video was like a reaffirmation of everything that I think is wrong with Square Enix right now. And it was just like, okay, guys, I would have rather seen a game. I would have much rather seen a game than another tech. And granted, that was a behind the closed doors tech demo that they eventually released, but that really frustrated me. Okay, what else we got here?
Kyle, you got anything?
Pokemon Conquest. I
That
played
was a
that
cool
for a
game.
while.
That's the Nobunaga
That game was
Pokemon game.
Yeah. It took a long time for me. I had to play it for a long time because it was so complicated that I needed the longest time out of anything, I think, to actually understand what was going on. But I think that's going to make a lot of people happy. I'm not the biggest strategy RPG fan, but I'm still interested in playing it. It's basically... Well, the way it was explained to me is there are 36 episodes in this game, and the very first one is the part of it. That's the one that I played, and you basically have to take over, I think, 17 castles, and in order to do that, you play through these traditional strategy RPG battles with Pokemon, and all the Pokemon weaknesses and all that stuff. And the interesting part of it, though, is, like, there's this management outside of it, this warrior and sort of almost time management that I think is going to make it really fun. Trying to, because each warrior can do one action every month. And an action could be something like going shopping. It could be taking him into battle. and once you do that, he's used up and you can't use him again. So like you're going to get more warriors and be able to do more things, and I think it'll be a really cool progression from tiny little army to much larger army.
To Pokemon ravaging the countryside and obliterating the peasants and killing everybody.
I have this image of Pikachu wearing like war paint with a bow and arrow and in the forest just hunting, Charizards.
Actually,
You know what's actually interesting is that there's new art for each Pokemon that's in it, and there are like 200 of them, and they do look like more fierce and warlike. It's kind of interesting.
I want to play this.
They really didn't like go halfway with it, like with most crossovers. Like they really embraced the Nobunaga aspect of the strategy. And like it's dense. And one of the coolest things I thought is I may have misunderstood it, but I don't think I did. In this one, you can actually steal people's Pokemon. Like when you are fighting another warlord, you can actually convince his Pokemon that it likes you better. And if you kill that warlord or beat that warlord in a fight, you actually get to keep that Pokemon. And that's always something that should have been in the original games. You should have been able to steal people's stuff.
That's true. You can jack other people's Pokemon in Pokemon Conquest.
Oh my god. I'm so baffled by it's a 3DS title, isn't it?
No, it's
DS.
Regular
It's DS? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm playing it. I am playing it because I was oof. I want to try
I'm a big
this.
fan of strategy RPGs, and it's definitely like it's not like going into it thinking, oh, this is going to have Pokemon, it's going to be very simple, is not the way to look at it. It's a Nobunaga game that also happens to have Pokemon.
I think if you're a strategy RPG fan, even if you've never played a Pokemon game in your life, you should pick it up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm proud of Nintendo.
Yeah, I mean, and this is again another one of those games that goes along with what I feel is the theme of E3 is that pleasant surprise. I mean, even when we first heard about it, Pokemon and Nobunaga, that shouldn't work. But when we played it, it worked. It was brilliant.
I think that was the big takeaway from E3 again. To get back to the start of the podcast was, watching those press conferences and seeing no real surprises. I mean, but do you guys remember when it used to be that you got these big surprises at E3? You see that the lights dim and you'd get this trailer and you didn't know what you were watching. You get all excited, and now it's like all these companies come out and 2 weeks before the show they show you everything that they're going to see. Nothing is a surprise. You're not sitting there going, there's no anticipation. And it's like the spectacle of E3 is gone. And it took reading your articles for the site for me to go, no, there was some stuff of value here. There was some stuff hidden away that was worth seeing, even if it wasn't, shown at a press conference because it wasn't called Call of Duty Black Ops 2.
Speaking of which, Activision had a just gargantuan just debauchery against humanity. Their sign was like debauchery against humanity. That doesn't make any sense. Anyway, it was like a 140-foot lengthwise screen playing just Activision trailers, and I don't really care for them, but man, was it cool to look at.
All right. Well,
Some more games.
more games.
I can
Neil?
name. Oh, go ahead, Neil. Yeah.
And right next to Pokemon Conquest was Mugen Souls. Now, Rob, Mugen Souls is one of those games that is probably everything you hate about Japanese RPGs.
Yeah. I actually said that.
It's localized by NIS, developed by Compile Heart, who are a subsidiary of Idea Factory. This is one of those, brightly colored, really just over the top, wacky Japanese RPGs. Even when I saw those controversial pictures early on in the year, I was like, yeah, I don't know about this game. But then when I played it, in spite of myself, I loved it. I thought it was hysterical. I loved a lot of the parody aspects of it, how they were making fun of how heroes do bad things like breaking vases and dressing their sidekicks in bikinis. And of course, and the three protagonists are like all anti-heroes who are going, hey, wait a minute, why is this hero doing bad things? Hey, how dare you dress her up in a bikini, you sexist pig? Look, it's one of those games, you know, it's not exactly going to appeal to everybody. I honestly didn't expect to like it because the only Idea Factory game I've really liked was Hakuoki, but somehow I enjoyed this one. This is going to be a guilty pleasure game for me, for sure.
Urge to Kill Rising.
I was waiting for that one.
It's definitely a game that appeals to a certain audience. I played it. I didn't hate it, but it's an Idea Factory game. It's very in the vein of those like Neptunia and like all of those very self-referential JRPGs.
If it's not your thing, then stay far away.
Yeah, it's not going to make you a fan of that genre, but if you are a big fan of that genre, you're gonna get a kick out of it. Of that particular subset of the genre, like the really, really self-referential JRPGs.
Okay, moving on.
I played a game that we did not cover the first one, Darksiders 2. I love the first one. The first one, it was basically Zelda with like a harder edge, totally kick-ass art, and more DMC style combat. The second one, I was told that it's a lot more RPG this time. Now there's like a loot system for you finding weapons. There are still the same weapon types you're going to find. You're going to find like scythes and like heavy weapons and stuff. But now there's like, I don't know if it's as expansive as Diablo. I didn't get to spend enough time with it, but it is a Diablo type loot system. You have a skill tree, you have, necromancy, and then I can't remember what the other one was. It's like a melee focused one. So you can actually build death the way you want it. There's full sets of armor you can find, loot like that. The combat is just incredibly fluid. Like it's like the first one, but just Death just looks so like just animal-like when he's fighting. Like, I was fighting a battle at one point, and his dodge attack, War would roll or War would hop back when you played as him in the first one. And this one, Death kind of like hops into the air like he's like an ape or something, and just like he looks really just. The animation and the combat are just totally sweet. If you like the art style from the first one, it's just that turned up to 11. Just everything about it was really cool, and the increased RPG focus really serves it well. And like I told John and everybody else after I played it, it's kind of like Amalur at this point. It's like Amalur, but with the really great level design of the first Darksiders. They said there's a slightly lower emphasis on puzzle solving in this one. You're still going to go through dungeons. You're still going to solve puzzles, like environmental puzzles and stuff. But it's not going to be, it's a little bit lighter in the Zelda area. But what I played of it, the trade-off is well worth it. It's a very different feeling game, but it feels like a sequel. And it's absolutely something that I'm going to buy on day one because it's just, it's awesome.
I have a couple questions because I bought Darksiders 1 on Steam sale. I think I actually got a free copy of it with my purchase of Space Marine, and so I have a free copy of it on my PC. And I've heard that the PC version's kind of rough to get started, but whatever. Does the PS3 version of Darksiders 1 and more importantly Darksiders 2, do both of those games run at 60 frames per second? Because I believe they both do.
If I recall, the PS3 version of the first one, I think it did. I can't remember. It's been a while, but. I was playing on an OnLive console when I played, so it was a little bit blurry, but it was it never slowed down once. It was running butter smooth the whole time. Okay. And I have no reason to doubt that it won't. That was kind of one of their things. Is that it looked, and the animations and stuff and everything with the high frame rate, it just looks incredibly fluid.
Well, I think that, not trying to be a PC gamer snob over here, but like playing more and more games at 60 frames per second, like I'm finding it that's my number one way of preferred way of playing a video game right now is I'll play it on my PC just to get the 60 frames per second. Like I will jump through some hoops to get a game playing on my PC. And granted, it's not nearly that bad anymore, but I think it was Jeff Kanata on the Weekend Confirmed podcast was saying that most of the games at E3 were running on high-end PCs to make the game look as great as possible, to get the frame rate running as great as possible. I mean, do we have a problem with that? Because it's not really not saying Darksiders isn't, but it's not necessarily indicative of what you're going to be playing on the consoles. I mean, is that a little false of developers to do that, or are they just showing the game in the best light?
If you ask them, they'll tell you it's the PC version.
Sure, they're not lying to you, obviously.
I don't know. I mean, put the game's best foot forward. Anybody who knows anything about the console is going to see it and go, obviously, this is not running on an Xbox. And I mean, I agree with you. I made fun of you before I got my new PC. Oh, whatever. I love my consoles. But after me, playing The Witcher 2 at 60 frames a second, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this. I went to play SSX when it came out, and I was like, oh, God, 30 frames blind.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad.
I don't think it's disingenuous of them to do that because they're upfront about saying this is a PC demo.
It was really night and day playing Space Marine. I played the demo on my PS3 and then I played the demo on my PC, and just the fluidity of the experience and just like you're talking about the animations for Darksiders, like especially with action games with things that are very intense, we want to see them as fluid as possible, and 60 frames is just, it's night and day when you compare it to 30.
It also depends on the game too. Like some games don't need 60 frames, like action RPGs definitely benefit from it. Like Darksiders is butter smooth because of that, but not like Persona 4 or like Shin Megami Tensei 4. It doesn't matter if it's running at 60 frames because
right.
It's not animation heavy like that.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Okay, so Darksiders 2 looks good. Apparently, we're going to cover it. So, what else we got to talk about?
Another game, as Neil might say, off the beaten path, definitely was Ascend: New Gods, and this is another Xbox downloadable title, and it looked. I mean, it was kind of rough looking. Like, I didn't even know if it was an RPG at first. I was just kind of standing back, observing, trying to figure it out. And so I figured out it was an RPG, and then I started playing. And I mean, it was a bit rough looking, and obviously this is, pre-alpha or whatever. But there were some interesting things about it, and there was just kind of like this underlying level of personality and humor about it that I like. But it's a third-person action RPG with a general fantasy feel, so nothing new there. Avatar of a god that's trying to eke out his own domain and he's on the world. He sends this avatar to the world that currently pays obedience to a titan, I guess. And the titan is enormous, even bigger than your character, walking around in the background. Kind of cool. And you basically go around just, killing everything. And there are little guys, actual humans, come up to like your ankle. They're really small, and they'll like bow down to you or start attacking you. And it's really cool, and cool little details like that. But one of the most interesting things about it was the cooperative aspect or the online aspect. And it reminded me a lot of Dark Souls or Demon Souls.
Hello.
And I think we're going to see games inspired by that kind of indirect sort of multiplayer, And in this game, you could join other players' games, and you wouldn't actually directly affect them, but you could like curse or bless them. So you might drop it was some sort of a totem that had like an area of effect blessing, and you would do more damage or whatever. I'm not sure what it was. But the really cool thing was the curse. You can actually banish every enemy on screen and throw them into the other player's game. So suddenly they're fighting their own enemies and yours at the same time.
That's pretty cool.
Well, I think it's really interesting that Kyle brought up the like different ways that people are handling multiplayer right now. I think we're seeing that with Dragon's Dogma, with the whole you don't actually bring somebody into your world, but you bring in their pawn, their secondary character. Resident Evil 6 is going to do a thing where when the two different teams or three different teams meet up, because each main character has a partner character that you can play co-op with the whole way through. When the teams meet up at certain scenarios in the game, Capcom will actually go online to find players in the same exact situation and drop them into your game so that you're going to play together in these scenarios. That to me is a really cool aspect of multiplayer that I want to see more of.
Yeah.
This idea of single player experiences still being connected online.
Yeah,
And I think we will see it. I mean, I think it's gonna explode sort of
Yeah,
because of the success of Dark Souls.
And
I
also
agree
like
with-
a lot of like games I've been seeing, whether it was Raw, Realms of Ancient Wars, as I mentioned earlier, or the Young Justice game at Little Orbit's booth. I mean, there's a lot of RPG and are focusing a lot on like the cooperative multiplayer, kind of like old Gauntlet, and that's pretty neat for me.
Yeah, I definitely think, in regards to that whole thing, we're definitely going to start seeing more of that. Just the way that works, it allows you to get, other people into your experience without, having to necessarily be playing simultaneously. And I mean, we don't cover these games, but you're seeing it like games like SSX where you can race people, people's ghosts are just in your game, or like the new SimCity where like you're playing single player, but you're connected to the rest of the people's cities in the world. So it's like, it's almost like an MMO without, all of the horrible parts of MMOs, like most everything.
The problem that you run into, and again, this isn't a game that we cover obviously, but it really illustrates the point that these online synchronous ideas are really, really cool. The problem is making them work in the nature of your game, and especially if it's a narrative-driven game. So Dead Space 3 is going to have a single-player and multiplayer campaign. So if you're playing alone, it's just Isaac. If you're playing together, it's Isaac and the new character, Carver, or whatever the hell his name is. And I'm sitting there, and I was thinking about Dead Space and how they can incorporate elements of Dark Souls, make it more open-ended, and you explore more. And then I started thinking about, well, how do you handle multiplayer? Well, Dark Souls gets away with it because it's a fantasy realm, and it's this idea of different realities mixing in with each other, and that's how characters meet up and help each other in this world or hinder each other. But then I'm like, well, how do you handle that in a sci-fi game, like a horror game like Dead Space? How do you try to incorporate multiplayer or in Mass Effect? How do you deal with that? And it seems like the way that some companies are seeing to deal with that is to just keep the two separate, but there's a connecting element between the two. In Mass Effect, you see the impact that you have from multiplayer impacts your single-player game. In Dead Space 3, it's a single-player campaign until you go online, and then it's a multiplayer campaign. So it seems like these companies really want to bring multiplayer together, but they're having trouble from a narrative standpoint. You know what I mean? That was just something that I felt like, how would you make Uncharted a multiplayer game? Because he's obviously not always with a partner character. He is for vast majorities of the time, but Nathan Drake isn't always with a partner. Sometimes he's solo.
Yeah, I think that basically you're looking at the experience has to be tailored to it. You have to build a game where, okay, Resident Evil 5, Chev is always with him, or,
Yeah, that worked out so well.
Well, look,
My
we're-
so- My
Not
solution
necessarily
is
off
just to not have multiplayer at all, but
But
yeah.
But now, Kyle, would you have? You didn't play. That's right, because this is interesting. Because Kyle, you didn't like the multiplayer aspect of Dark Souls. You wanted to do it all on your own, right?
yeah, I wish I could have done it all on my own. I wish it would have been just maybe slightly easier, so I could have done it by myself. It's sort of a double-edged sword for me. I like it sometimes, but generally I just like a solitary experience. So
I see where you're coming from with that. Like, for me, when I play Dark Souls, it almost feels like cheating when you fight a boss with another guy.
That's
Because-
how I felt.
Even though they can't be, I think it's like within 7 soul levels. The fact is, when you're fighting Ceaseless Discharge, if he's attacking you, he's not attacking the other guy who is literally just wailing on him.
Well, but Ceaseless Discharge you're supposed to beat with a trick anyway. But not to talk about Dark Souls too much. But we see it with Diablo now. Like Diablo is very much you're supposed to be playing that game online. That's why they want you to have the multiplayer connection all the time. I think we're going to see more and more of this. Is that the single player, the straight single player experience? I think we're going to see slowly go by the wayside. We're even seeing connectivity with the new Hitman game. there's going to be a scoring system and a ranking system online to compare you to all your friends. I mean, even in the E3 demo, it had your rating as you were going through the mission that's going to be posted online. That's even a level of multiplayer. That's a level of connectivity and connection with another user base. And I think we're going to see more of that as these consoles, PCs, as these things continue to be online all the time.
Yeah, I think it's definitely part of the future, and it's sort of unfortunate for me, but I know a lot of people enjoy it, and I like this sort of indirect, that we're seeing in Dark Souls and Ascent and stuff. That's my favorite kind of multiplayer, if we have to have it.
I agree. I think there's room for both experiences. Like, I love to play Borderlands in multiplayer with friends, and I also love, Dark Souls. I'm playing it by myself, but when I want someone else part of my experience, they can be. And if I recall, Neil, didn't you play a game at E3 that was kind of relevant to this?
Actually, yes, I did. It was the latest from Larian Studios. It was called Divinity Origins. And while it does have a robust single-player experience where you're controlling, a party of 4 characters throughout an adventure, there is drop-in, drop-out multiplayer where, another player can become one of those 4 characters. And there's a lot of times where throughout the game you'll be making, dialogue choices, but it's not just, say, the leader, making the dialogue choices and the trees. The other characters will have, dialogue choices and trees too, and that could either go along with or against the leader player, and even when they talk to each other, there's dialogue choices, and it affects, character relationships. So it's almost one of those things where, where if you want to bring a friend into it to help they can kind of have a part in playing the story. So it's it's ambitious, but it's kind of like hearing what Kyle says. If it's pulled off as well as I hope it is, you kind of get to eat your cake and have it too.
Cool. All right. So what other games do we have? Wait a minute. I just realized that Steven mentioned a game that no one has talked about yet. Did anybody see Borderlands 2?
Oh,
well, mine was too long for me.
I tried it. Kyle, I think you tried it, and I know Liz tried it.
If you liked Borderlands 1, you'll really like Borderlands 2, but if you didn't, it's not going to change your mind.
Basically, it's a lot more Borderlands. The new character skills are very cool. For example, the sniper has a move where he disappears, he becomes cloaked, but he leaves a clone of himself. But while he's cloaked, weak points on the enemies get highlighted in red, and if you shoot those, I believe it just keeps building up a damage multiplier, and so you can keep aiming for different weak points on the enemies until you get to the point where you're one-shotting people. And the guns feel very different now. It's basically Borderlands turned up to 11.
Am I gonna like it? I mean,
You didn't play the first one in multiplayer, so you missed the point.
No, I did a little bit, but the problem with that game, I will not toot an article that I wrote. My problem with that game was that it was too much of an RPG with too much of it was like the exact opposite of my reaction to the first Mass Effect, where the first Mass Effect didn't control at all like a shooter, so I got really frustrated because it looked like a shooter. Meanwhile, Borderlands looked completely like a shooter, but it had the same RPG mechanics behind the back that it didn't matter how many times I shot that dude in the face. If he was 3 levels higher than me, he took 1 damage from each shot.
Yeah, I don't
got
think
really annoyed.
I don't think you're going to see it change from that.
Probably not. I didn't play it long enough to figure it out, but I don't think they changed it too much.
Yeah, there's a lot more okay, this enemy has oh, you got to go run here and blow this chunk of armor off, or you got to find this weak point. There's a lot more. There is a greater degree of strategic consideration going into your fights, but it's still an RPG. If the guy's 10 levels ahead of you, you will never kill him.
I guess I just described. I tried to make it sound like Mass Effect and Borderlands were very different, but I guess I could argue that they both had the exact same problem for me, which was that if you're gonna look that much like a shooter, but the numbers underneath the hood are, for lack of a better term, screwing me as bad as they are, and there's no amount of my skill that's able to break through that, that really annoys me. And so I've looked at Borderlands 2. I mean, it looks cool. I mean, it looks like it's ratcheted up to 11, but I am not really interested at all.
I think you may need to play it with me.
Okay.
Like, I am a huge fan of the first Borderlands. With four different groups, I've beaten the entire game. There's, if you accidentally run, afoul of the way the game is balanced, like, oh crap, I ran into the area for the end of this chapter and everything is way higher level, yeah, you're gonna get screwed. But if you're following the game, the general path of side quests and quest, you're gonna level up. You're never gonna see enemies that are grossly overpowered from you. And the whole time, you're just going to be having a fantastic fine looting. And
well, I guess what I really want to see is I want to see a reason behind what I'm doing in that game. Like every time I got a mission in that game, I was just like, yeah, whatever. Well, that might have been because the PC version was so broken that I couldn't even like scroll down the list and read the entire mission description of what I was doing. There was no way to do that.
They fixed that later.
Yeah, they fixed it later. Great.
Well, two things then in that case. They're going for a greater. No, they're not trying to foist story upon you in this one, but they're doing a lot of work to make the story actually part of the experience, where like characters are talking and saying, "Hey, yo, the catch a ride station broke. Go fix it," as opposed to here's a block of dialogue that you are going to skip and then chase the dot. You get, I believe there's a mini map now, so you're not just chasing dots all over the place. You have more of a tactical awareness, and they've said several times the PC version will be a full PC version. It's going to have specifically designed for it, tons of options to tweak the game. No mouse smoothing, no game spy. They're building it.
God,
they're building it this time. They released a funny. It was like a letter from Claptrap, and it was like a love letter.
Oh
to
yeah,
PC
I
fans.
did see that. I did.
So, if those were some of your concerns in the first one, they have specifically stated they're trying to address these. I didn't get to see that really in action because I just played a brief demo of it.
It was funny because I tried to play Borderlands 1. I've said it before multiple times. I tried to play Borderlands 1 like 3 different times, and it always started out the same way. I was like, oh my God, this game's amazing. And then like 2 hours later, I was like, okay, I'm having fun. And then 2 hours after that, I was like, yeah, I'm done.
You got to play it with friends, and the first Borderlands, if you do every side quest, eventually they get too easy because there's more side content than there is main content, and you outlevel the story, and then it gets to be just, okay, everything dies in one hit. And then you run ahead, and then you get to, oh crap, everything will not die at all. It definitely has a couple of foibles like that, but if you play it, you got to play it with friends. It's really not something I could see enjoy. I wouldn't enjoy playing it with random people, but like if we all got on and played it, and hopped on Skype, it's a complete blast.
When is that? Is that September?
Yes.
God, it's amazing with all these games that have been delayed. It's still a very busy fall. It's still a very, very busy fall. I'm sitting here trying to figure out how I'm going to make all this stuff work. Crap. Don't plan a wedding, guys. Don't plan a wedding. It's really, really hard.
I'm starting grad school, so that's going to be nice and busy.
You're going to be broke and have no time.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
Well, I mean, I'm broke now, so I might as well just add the no time on there. At least I won't feel like I'm wasting my time.
Kyle, are you going to join us for Borderlands? Because this was actually one of the ways that Kyle and I bonded, as we both didn't like Borderlands that much.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe.
I wanted to like that game, and I'm really interested. I'm really interested to see what they do with the character classes, because that was the number one complaint that I had with that game, was that the character classes were so blah. And
Unfortunately, there's still only like one special ability, and then all the rest of the skills are kind of passive and boring.
Man.
There is, though, like, I agree with Kyle. I was kind of hoping to see more actives, but the diversity among the passives is a lot greater now, and it's much easier to respec, because it seems like they're almost building the game where, hey, what are the skills I need for this particular mission? Or like, do I want to have more corrosive power this mission because I'm fighting guys that have, metal armor or whatever. It's
that could be good, because that just watching your slight point totals go up, and I thought the special ability for each character class in the first game was really lame.
Yeah.
Like really freaking lame, like just throwing a bird at people or dropping. Why is you notice that like every game these days you have to have a character class that drops a turret?
Yeah, and I played that class, and the turret was actually pretty handy, but it was also kind of boring.
Yeah, and I guess I really want to see. It seems like the 4 character classes that they announced are much more interesting. I'm interested in playing as the ninja or whatever the assassin character is. What does he use, like a sword or something?
He has a sword, and he's got like the stealth move that I mentioned. And what's cool is he has an entire tree of moves to make his melee attack like crazy, like super fast, or like if he kills somebody, he becomes like lightning fast and can run and kill somebody else, and like
Cool.
they're definitely all still passives, and that's kind of a bummer. But the diversity among them is definitely better than what I saw in the first one, because I agree the first one's special abilities was kind of okay, jack up whichever passive gun I like and then move on.
Yeah, so I'm excited for it. I thought Borderlands 1 was like a good groundwork. Hey, if we see the development from Diablo 1 to Diablo 2, I mean, hey, I've signed me the hell up. But I don't know. Nothing about that game has me excited right now. Maybe it's when I'm playing with Steven and he's yelling at me to kill Skags, I'll get really interested. I
My
still
roommate
love,
hated the game.
Really?
Then he played it like he had a lot of the same complaints you did, and then he played it in multiplayer with me and my other roommate, and he was like, "We have to get Borderlands 2. This is so awesome."
I still love the art design of that game. Like the best thing that game ever did was when they redid the art design, because I remember when that was just bland Space Shooter 3 or whatever that, and then they redid that art design and went crazy with the comic book look of that game. That was the best thing they could have done.
And their display at the E3 booth was one of my favorites, because the characters looked amazing. It was really striking, like you said, that comic book look.
Yeah, that's a good comic book look. I was walking through a bookstore the other day, and I saw the Game of Thrones graphic novel was there. And I don't mean to harp on a dude's art style, but I'm now remembering why I got out of comic books like back in the 90s, because it just looked so awful. Like that, the characters, and of course it's that 90s comic book, like every woman has double D's and no waist, and every dude is literally built like Dwayne the Rock Johnson mixed with Hulk Hogan and Lou Ferrigno. Like it just,
so he's Marcus Phoenix.
Yeah, it just looks like and it's like it's so bland and uninteresting. And then you see something like Borderlands, which is very stylized, and it does strike you because it's like, this is stylized done right. This grabs your attention in a positive way. And I thought the trailers for Borderlands 1 and especially Borderlands 2, they look really impressive. I just want to see I want to see some more meat to that game. I want to see some reasoning for why I'm doing what I'm doing. I think Steven's right. When you're doing it with friends, when you're playing that game with friends, you don't care about what you're doing. When you're playing it as a solo experience, you get really bored really fast.
I want you to take everything you just said, delete the word Borderlands, and replace it with Diablo.
No, that's not true. Honestly, I can play Diablo 2 and 3 by myself and have a really good time.
I cannot, but that's just the difference there. The thing is, though, if you're looking for a why in Borderlands, you need to. It's the same answer as Diablo. You're looking for better loot.
Yeah. I think the loot progression in Borderlands was also frustrating. Like
I thought it was awesome.
I don't know. It was frustrating. I don't know. There was just something was missing. Maybe it was just as simple as it wasn't called Diablo. But
you can get a machine gun that fires rockets. You can get a shotgun that fires little cluster bombs with a scope.
Is that in the new one or was that in the old one?
That's in the first one, and they're even more. And that's actually the best part about the second one, is that all of the different brands of guns are vastly different. Like the cheapy brand of guns now are like, you'll fire them, and as you're firing them, chunks of them are flying off, and like instead of reloading them, you just throw them away.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. I wanted to like Borderlands 1, and Lord knows I played it a lot. I think if I didn't have to jump through those PC hoops, I would have liked it. I remember having to set up a DMZ for my wireless because I could not play with anybody online. Like that's that GameSpy implementation. Steven, are you getting it for PC or are you going to get it for PS3?
PC, baby.
That a boy.
What did I build this badass PC for, if not to play games with Rob
Just
and
The
everyone
Witcher,
else who has
because-
badass PCs,
Just
such as
The
Kyle,
Witcher.
who can join us.
Because The Witcher's the only game that uses that badass piece.
Yeah.
Hey,
well,
you know what?
maybe you can convince me to play it.
There we go. Now we're talking.
I'll give it a shot. So, all right. Well, we're coming up on an hour, and I promised Zach, who is going to be editing this, that we will keep it to an hour. So, yeah, E3 definitely interesting. I don't know what to say. I think it was very much a transition year. You could tell that some people wanted there to be an announcement of new consoles, Watch Dogs and Star Wars 1313. They're like, oh yeah, take a look at these games. What consoles are you releasing them for? Well, that's an interesting question, actually. It was like, okay.
The answer to that question is we don't know what they're called yet.
Don't know what they're. Well, we know it's going to be PlayStation 4. Well, actually, I would be kind of surprised if they called it PlayStation 4.
Well, supposedly they're going to call it the Orbis because in Latin, Orbis Vita means circle of life, and that's just pretentious enough for Sony that I believe it. It's also, I'm not going to deny it. I eat that up. I'm like, yeah, all right, go ahead and do it.
I think
it's
the Sony brand, not the Sony brand, but the PlayStation brand, I think has kind of been damaged a little bit because of the PlayStation 3, and everybody's all doom and gloom about the Vita. I don't think we're ready to put the Vita 6 feet under yet, although Lord knows they tried during that Sony press conference, because what they said about Vita was less than what they said about the freaking J.K. Rowling storybook game.
Yeah, dude, but Nintendo didn't even talk about the 3DS. And then when they finally had a conference for it, it was like some tiny conference that nobody was at where they just talked about the 4 games everybody already knows about.
Yeah, I think the PlayStation brand might be damaged a little bit, and they might want to call the PlayStation 4 something different.
There were a lot of Vita games at the show, just to not to harp on that topic, but I definitely think both of those handhelds are going to have a good lifespan.
I hope so, but I think that's where we're going to see a lot of development. I mean, we got an SMT game coming out for 3DS. I can almost guarantee you it's going to come out for Vita as well. It's like, why wouldn't they? I think we're going to see some cool stuff. So,
Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep 2.
I thought we were going to see Kingdom Hearts.
We will, and I'll tell you about that later.
All right. Okay, well, thank you, everybody, for listening to the first segment of the podcast. We will be moving on into the second segment after a little break. Hello, and welcome, everybody, to the second half of our E3 podcast. Once again, I'm Rob Steinman, Pale Robbie on the boards. Joining me for this section, we have the man with many titles, the Grand Maester of the Universe, and the E3 aficionado.
This is John McCarroll, reigning in a decade of E3.
You've been going to E3 for a decade, dude?
This was number 10.
Wow. How does it feel?
I'm tired of walking around. All the games should just come to me.
So you must have liked that one E3 where, that's literally what they did.
Oh, okay, so E3 2007 was the one that was in Santa Monica, where I walked more than any other year because I had to run back and forth between hotels.
Yeah.
2008 was just in a single hall of the LA Convention Center, and it was just like, oh, I'm just going to hang out right here. What's great is if you see pictures and videos of E3 at any point between 10 and 6, the halls are absolutely crowded. You can't get anywhere. I have a picture that I took at noon in 2008 in one of the days of the show, and there's 3 people in it, and it's of a huge hallway, which I thought was always quite fun.
Awesome. So John's not the only one here today. We also have back to the show after an awesome first episode. We have David Yeager.
Hey, how's it going?
Awesome.
And it was my first E3.
Oh, first one. Okay.
That's right.
One of the oldest guys on the podcast, and this was your first E3.
Oh, thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate it.
Hey, we got the old crew here today. All of us that are almost over the hill, getting married and whatnot. Just Oh God.
Practically fitting me for a walker as we speak.
Yes, exactly. That's the way I feel sometimes. I mean, my students are like, "Wow, you must be old. You're 27." I'm like, God.
Think about this is what scares me is that kids that can drive today in this year were born in 1996.
Oh my God.
Let's not spend too much time thinking about that.
Now I feel terrible.
Now it's going to be a sad podcast.
Yeah, sadness. Oh my God, guys. Oh my God. Okay, good things. Good. Happy thoughts. Okay, so we got a lot of games to talk about. We obviously talked about a metric ton of video games in the first segment, but we still have more. Once again, proving that this E3, even though it didn't seem like it, there were a lot of RPGs at this E3. So who wants to get the ball rolling?
Ooh, me.
Oh, John.
Ooh, me. Okay. So there's actually a point-and-click adventure game, not an RPG, but it's within RPG fans coverage, so I'm going to talk about it anyway. We had a chance to visit Lace Mamba, which is they're a publisher. They actually publish indie games in physical packages in Europe, but they also do some digital publishing as well. And they're publishing this game called Lucius. And in Lucius, you play as a 6-year-old boy. Yes, I did.
A very creepy 6-year-old boy.
Yes.
Is this like Limbo? Like what are we talking?
Okay, so Limbo is like, oh, I'm a 6-year-old boy. Okay, Lucius has had his soul sold to Satan.
Charming.
So Lucius is in this. His family is fairly well-to-do. They're British, and Lucius kills people, and it's all according to Satan's plan. And you have to figure out how best to kill your victims. So
that you get away with it. Yeah.
Oh
yes.
My God.
So they showed us a couple of scenarios. One was you had to kill the maid, and the maid was in the kitchen, and she walks into the freezer. So you grab a padlock and you lock her in the freezer and turn it up. And then as she's in there, you come back later in the night and take the padlock away so no one will notice that it was you.
So this is like Agent.
This is the positive part of the podcast right now. It's
my God!
6-year-old murderer. Yes.
Like I'm having this awesome image of like Agent 47 as a young kid, or like The Omen with Gregory Peck right now. Oh my God!
The Omen was the first thing I thought of. Again, putting an age on me.
Now, the other scenario that they showed us, which I think there's 20 some odd scenarios, was your father's friend comes in and he's a smoker. So you have to figure out the best way to kill him. So you steal his cigarettes, and then you go to the oven and make a gas leak. So when he goes to light his cigarette on the oven, it explodes.
Okay, I have a couple serious questions here. First off, what platform? Because I need to play this game.
This is a PC title.
Okay, cool. Is it out yet?
No, it's going to be out, I believe, in September or October, sometime later this year.
Okay.
It's not a real big budget title, so don't expect super over the top everything. It's a point and click adventure game.
Right.
It's a 3D adventure game. But it's a really, really cool concept. The team behind it is actually a team in Finland, and it's got like 4 guys on it. So, but it's just a really, really great concept, and it looks like the execution is pretty solid too, especially for a team of that size.
A wild idea for a game. And Kyle did a nice preview on it if you want more information, anybody listening to it, on the website. And it's got some really creepy screenshots too.
I'm really
not for the faint of heart.
I am really excited for this right now because this is what I want to see out of video games. Just different stuff. We were talking before on the last episode, I think, about how I wanted to play a game where I was evil. Well, you don't get much more evil than trying to kill the maid.
Yeah.
Like, holy God.
No, so that was one that our demo was not particularly long. And the game is pretty linear. Like, it's not like, oh, you're this 6-year-old boy. Am I going to use the gun or am I going to use the thing? They're set. How you do it is set. Like, it's a point-and-click adventure game, just like how you can only do things one way in Monkey Island or whatever. It's the same thing there, but it just looks very, very intriguing, and I'm really interested to see that one when it comes out.
Yeah, there's some interesting ideas, too. Like, he has a little bit of telekinesis, so I know that he can, basically pop light bulbs, to kind of avoid detection in certain sequences and everything like that. It kind of, there should be some neat or extremely disturbing puzzle sequences, kind of in the game. I think it's going to be interesting.
Okay, that game sounds amazing. So, okay, who wants to follow that game up?
Well, we can follow that up with, did we discuss Young Justice Legacy? this was one that I saw that is actually going to be based on the TV show, the cartoon that's in its second season. Now, I wasn't too familiar with the cartoon, but I did the best I could, tried to catch up on a little bit of it and everything. But basically, the idea is that this is the Young Justice League. These are the teenage sidekicks and possible heirs to the Justice League. And this is a cartoon that's on Cartoon Network on a regular basis. So you've got guys like Nightwing and kind of a young Flash and things like that. And basically, this game is going to in between seasons 1 and 2 of the cartoon, there's about a 5-year gap. And this game is going to tell a portion of the story that takes place in between that gap, which is, kind of a neat idea. Now, the publishing company in particular, and the name escapes me, I'll have to look it up real quick, but the publishing company in particular seems to be doing a lot of this with like other titles where they're trying to do additional marketing kind of opportunities for things like novels and cartoons, because they're also doing a Mistborn game, the same publisher.
From my understanding, Little Orbit is actually their kind of modus operandi is to create games based on existing franchises.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And of course, knowing the Little Orbit off the top of his head is why he's the editor-in-chief. And so basically this game looks pretty neat because it's going to have 3-player at the same time kind of cooperative play. But if you don't have cooperative players in there, there's going to be the other 2 players will be controlled by artificial intelligence, by the AI, and you can switch between the characters, kind of as the game progresses. So it looked to me it reminded me a lot of the old kind of the updated Gauntlets, that type of action RPG where it's kind of a light gameplay type of thing, but a lot of fun to play with your friends.
Okay. Is there like angsty Batman, like, if they're all kids and whatnot?
Well, remember, they're not all the actual, so it's not like Superman and Batman and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
It's like Teen Titans almost.
Oh, God.
So, you're talking about all the younger apprentices and or sidekicks. Young Justice.
Shut up, Rob. You're not the target audience.
I watched a little bit of Teen Titans. I was getting out of high school when that show was on TV. I tried to catch it a few times, and I was like, okay, this is...
Well, it's not like, Rob, the Teen Titans comic has been around, forever.
No, that's true. I know. I'm just, I'm just hating. Hate is gonna hate.
I know, and I'm telling you why not to.
All right. So... Okay, so what else did we see?
Let's talk. I'm going to talk a little bit about Ragnarok Odyssey, which Xseed had at their booth, but it was not translated at all because it's not yet been translated. But it's pretty straightforward. If you've played Phantasy Star Online or Phantasy Star Portable, Monster Hunter, those style of games, you know exactly what you're getting with Ragnarok Odyssey, but it's for Vita. And it's got much more fast-paced combat than the others. You knock enemies into the air, juggle them there. But in regards to its overall structure, if you've played a game like that, or God's Eater Burst or any of those, you know exactly what you're getting into. It's not bringing a whole lot that's brand new to the table, but it's pretty and it's for Vita, and that's good enough for me.
Well, it's good to see at least one game for Vita, because I was, John, you and I had talked a lot about the Vita and what we're hoping to get out of that system and whatnot, and I gotta say, after Sony's press conference, I was just like, well, they don't seem to care about Vita anymore.
Well, in the same way, kind of the 3DS got shuffled to the back at Nintendo's press conference. It didn't really seem to be their focus here. I'm actually really happy with the Vita just because Gravity Rush came out last week, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got the Metal Gear collection as well.
Which you love the controls, right?
Oh my God, I don't know. I don't know how you complain about every other game and don't complain about Metal Gear.
Dude, it was 2001 when Metal Gear 2 came out. I've had over a decade to get used to those controls, but I still admit they're crap.
I'm
totally
I need
agree.
to shoot that person.
No, it's true. It's true, but I think what helps with that is that.
No. I need to ask this question right here on the podcast.
Okay.
How is it I can pull out my gun with Square? How do I put it down without shooting?
Okay, there is a problem with that, and I noticed it with the HD collection. You're supposed to ease off the square button like very, very gently to put the gun away. It did not work as well in the HD.
No. No. You know why that doesn't work? Because the Vita's face buttons are not pressure sensitive.
Then I would just unequip it by tapping maybe R2. John, I am going to agree with you. Those controls are terrible. I actually thought that the HD collection was good, but not that great. Like, there were serious problems with some of the boss fights in 3. Like, 3, you have to fight the end, it's completely audio based. No, I have to complain about this.
I got Rob on Metal Gear. What did I do?
Yeah, I know. No, but the end is audio based in terms of the whole fight. Like, that's how you find him. That's how you snipe him. The audio cues don't work in the HD collection, and I actually went back, put in the PS2 version to see if I was losing my mind, and I wasn't. I was able to take him out easily in the PS2 version. PS3, the audio was all over the place, and it was just wrong. And it was like, oh, he's over here. No, he's actually in the exact opposite area of where he was. So, in answer to your question, John, yes, those controls suck.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I bet you are.
No, I am. Like, they suck. I will not disagree.
Gravity Rush is awesome, even though it's not an RPG. It's kind of an open world action game. It's kick ass, so you should pick it up if you have a Vita.
Do we think that the companies are just all giving up on handhelds? I mean, are they just saying, like, Apple, you win?
No. I think what's going on, and honestly this comes from Japan, is in Japan the Vita has not picked up yet, simply because there's not a Monster Hunter game for Vita. And I wish it would be like a platform in North America that doesn't have a Grand Theft Auto, or doesn't, you have, or a Call of Duty. So, look at the Wii. The Wii doesn't have Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Wii's certainly not selling right now. I think that in Japan, Monster Hunter is our Call of Duty or our Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
Now, I think the Vita will sell more in North America when whatever the new Call of Duty comes out, or maybe Assassin's Creed. And then in Japan, it will start selling more when Monster Hunter comes out.
You mean Assassin's Creed 3, as they kept referring to it during the press conference? I just thought I felt bad for Jack Tretton on that one.
I wasn't there.
Okay, I'm sorry. But no, I think you're right. It was very disheartening because I figured that we were going to see, like, after Nintendo hit the panic button on the 3DS and dropped the price, and they were like, "Oh my God, please buy our system!" Like, I kind of expected Sony was going to do that with the Vita, and they were like, "Yeah, we're good. We're not going to announce no games, but man, we good."
I think they're playing kind of the same game they were with the PlayStation 3 in regards to pricing, where they're. Well, no, it worked for them in the long run, but they have no need right now to say, okay, you need to buy Vitas right now, because I feel like, there is going to be in North America less sales of both handhelds simply because of iPads and iPods and Android phones.
This is going to sound really dickish, what I'm about ready to say, and I really don't mean it to sound that way, John, but when you say successful because of the pricing of the PS3, I mean, they ended up in third place. Like, is that successful, or are we just talking success from a monetary, like, they made money off their system?
Well, they made money, and in regards to here, I don't consider the Wii successful to the core market, and I certainly don't see the Wii as successful as a long-term console.
Okay, I see what you're saying now. Okay, then I agree with you, because we've seen the Wii numbers really going down, and PlayStation 3 has certainly picked up. So yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure.
I'm not saying that, oh my God, they blew the doors off everything, because you know what, it was going to be impossible to follow up with the PlayStation 2.
Right.
But
I wouldn't go out and buy Sony stock right now. But then I'll just leave it at that. I mean, they're not just getting killed in terms of like video games. They're also getting killed in other arenas like electronics and things like that. I'm not sure. I mean, we're kind of getting a little bit off into like the business area of how this works, but I am not sure that their model of placing themselves as a premium product with how much quality has caught up in more economically priced products, and I'm talking things like TVs, not just video game platforms.
No, that's a good point.
I don't know. I'm interested to. I don't know if it's savvy business sense or just plain old stubbornness when it comes to things like the Vita.
Well, that's a very good point that you bring up with the other aspects of Sony business, because when it comes to TVs, like when I decided I was gonna buy a new plasma screen TV, I took one look at Sony's pricing and one look at LG, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go with LG, which is like significantly cheaper.
One thing that's interesting is actually those two brands. I own a 40-inch Sony TV and a 32-inch LG TV.
Well, look at you rolling in that RPG fan money.
Oh, yeah, right.
How's it feel to go to sleep on piles of gold coins?
Oh,
Yeah, how do you like that, Scrooge McDuck?
You mean me waiting and waiting for a payment at E3 so I can make sure I can afford the hotel?
I like how we're dating ourselves with DuckTales references right now.
Jeez.
No, but I mean the quality on my Sony. I paid $800 for my Sony TV and $400 for my LG, and this was a couple of years ago. So obviously prices have gone down for those size of televisions, but the quality on my Sony television is noticeably higher than that on my LG.
Sure. No, I would agree with you that, like, when I bought a PlayStation 3, and now granted I had an original 60 gig unit, like, I loved that thing, but $600, like, that was an idiot's price, and it paid for it.
It was $599 US.
I'm sorry, Kaz. I feel bad now. So I was happy with that purchase because, I mean, I did feel like I was getting a premium product. And I will say that, like, if I take the difference between the PlayStation 3 that I had to buy later because the 60 gig broke and the 60 gig original, the 60 gig original had more stuff. Like, it had more USB ports. It had the backwards compatibility PlayStation 2. Like,
I love my 60 gig unit. I can see it right now. It's shiny.
Yeah, just make sure you back that thing up because most 60 gigs are tending to die. So.
Oh, mine's been good for, 7 years now.
Just saying, we had 3 die in the dorm, dude. I'm just warning you. Like, back it up. That's all I gotta say. But
I've got nothing on there that needs to be backed up. Everything's cloud saves for me.
Nuts.
PlayStation Plus, yo.
Hey, they made a good argument for buying PlayStation Plus during their press conference, giving you free games and whatnot. I mean,
well, yeah. So we've gotten way off track.
Well, that's the nature of E3, dude.
I
There's
guess
stuff to talk about.
the last thing I'll say about Sony is that, like, their bottom line as a company, and this is, again, not just the Vita, this is kind of everything. Their bottom line of a company is they have been posting multi-billion-dollar losses, for the last couple of years. And I mean, they're having quarters where they're losing over $300 million in a single quarter right now. So, like, as a company, I'm very curious to see what they do with the Vita and with, like, some of their other products, because I think that they've been so dominant as placing themselves as a premium product for so long, but what seems to work for Apple, which is placing yourself as a premium product and not budging from kind of that, price point, it doesn't seem to be working for Sony because there seems to be so much more competition that's working against them. And I can't, if I could explain why, I would, work for Sony, but I can't. But I mean, it just seems to be the way it is. And right now they're hemorrhaging money, so the fact that even in spite of the fact that they are hemorrhaging money, they won't do a Vita price drop, it tells you something about their kind of corporate mentality here. They don't want to move down into, like, into it. They don't want to ever be a second tier product because it's really hard to go from second tier to first tier again.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Do we want to get back to the RPGs?
Yes. So do we want to talk Elder Scrolls?
Oh boy. Can we talk about the good first? Because anytime that I see, Vampire Lords, I'm happy.
Yeah, no, Dawnguard looked great. I mean, it's somewhere between a full-fledged expansion pack and a DLC pack. It's 20 some odd hours. They said 10 to 20,
which means about 5.
No, I don't think
the way you and I play, John.
Oh, well, yeah, no, if you're just getting gun through the story, I'm sure you can do it in no time flat.
Yeah.
It's fun, kind of. It adds perk trees to vampires and werewolves.
Oh, cool. So you can be Team Edward or Team Jacob. That's great.
Yes. The only thing that I found a little bit awkward was Vampire Lords have 2 different modes, where they have melee mode and magic mode. And you have to click in. I don't know how it works on PC. We played on 360. But you have to click in the left analog stick to swap between them. and just kind of awkward. Much like werewolves, it forces you to a third-person view. It really didn't. It wasn't really much of an issue. Like, it was functional, just like the third-person view is functional as a werewolf. But no, it's fun. I mean, you get your abilities based on how vampire-y you are. So if you continue to eat people and do vampire-y things, you get more vampire powers. Hooray!
Can we get the True Blood soundtrack in there?
No.
Sorry, it's the summer, and it's time for True Blood. So
I don't know any of those television shows.
Oh, fine.
The kids are into True Blood, right?
Yeah, the kids
Okay.
love the True Blood because it's basically porn on HBO.
All right, see, we're still hip. We're still with it.
Yeah.
The vampires are not sparkly.
Thank God. Is there a new area? Like, there's a new environment?
Yes. So actually, you go through an Oblivion Gate at some point and do part of your stuff in like this nether-worldy area, which I don't remember the name of.
Is it just called the Netherworld?
No.
Okay.
But no, I got maybe 20, 30 minutes of playthrough with it. Unfortunately, I died halfway through and the beta didn't checkpoint me.
Ooh.
So it was like, they just tossed me back to the beginning of the demo.
Did they announce a price for it?
Yeah, it's $20.
Okay, that seems reasonable. I mean, if it's
Not
around the size of an expansion pack, I'm okay with that.
So I mean, it adds what you would expect an expansion pack to add.
We've debated this before on the show, and I know, John, you're going to get mad at me right now, and I apologize in advance for that. Don't we think it's a little late? Like,
No.
Again,
No, it's not.
It's been out.
Rob, I know that you get bored of stuff really quickly, but for me, like, this is I can go back to Skyrim. I enjoyed Skyrim. I've now had a chance to kind of rid my system of Skyrim, and I can go back. It's like going to the buffet. It's like you go to the buffet, and then afterwards you feel like crap, and you're like, I can't believe I ate the whole thing. And then like 4 or 5 months later, you're like, oh man, you know what would be awesome if I went to the buffet, and the cycle continues like that.
I can see that, but I still, I can definitely see that argument. I don't know where most consumers lie. I think you and I very much differ in that area. Like, you're very much hey, I want to play that game, again, you rid your system of it. I'm like, I want to get the most out of it right at that time. I don't know where consumers lie on that. I'm just, I don't know.
I worked at GameStop for a long time. Fans of games are going to be fans of games. Like, here, Rob, question for you.
Yes, I'm buying that expansion pack for Dark Souls. Yes.
Okay.
Shut the hell up.
Okay.
Point taken, John.
Okay. That just proved my point.
Yes. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay.
So maybe it's just the fact that I wasn't huge into Skyrim. That's
yeah. No. It really comes down to how big of a fan are you of that game.
Okay. No, that's fair. But you liked it. You liked what you saw. So
yeah. I mean, it's an expansion pack. It's just what you'd expect an expansion pack to be. It's not my most the expansion pack I'm most excited for right now. But it's an expansion pack.
Okay. Cool. What about that other Elder?
All right, the Elder Scrolls Online. I was really, really diplomatic in my preview. It looks really generic, and you know what? That might actually work for it. People love the Elder Scrolls. Skyrim looks really generic. Oblivion looked really generic. Morrowind looked really generic. I don't know about Arena and whatever the first one was. I mean, it's not as if Skyrim is it's not as if the Elder Scrolls is a world that's known for being super original.
True.
And you know what? The Elder Scrolls Online looks like it has some interesting concepts in the way that things will work. And I think it's almost like Rift in that it's pulling elements from everywhere elsewhere in the MMO world to put it together in a cohesive package. And that might work for it. It worked for Rift.
Okay.
I'm starting to wonder if this MMO space is just going to be a matter of timing. Run out,
I think that we're actually I don't think that it's going to be a bubble that's going to burst, but I do think that the entire genre is starting to contract.
I think you're right. I mean, we've kind of seen it a little bit when they talk about the numbers for Old Republic. Like, I mean, I'm not sitting here saying that Old Republic is a failure, but we
That's
haven't
not
seen.
what you said in the pre-show warm-up.
Okay, well, I did not say failure. Thank you very much. I did not say failure, but I do think that, hey, they had this great launch and everybody was really interested in their game, and it was like, ooh, la-di-da, this is great, and now it's like, well, who's playing it now?
I'm playing it.
Well, Dave, that's great. How's your experience going with that?
Kind of like you described. I mean, these are all fair points. The game is when I reviewed the game, I wished I could have given it 2 scores, one for the single player experience and one for the multiplayer experience. They have a very good single player game that a lot of people happen to be playing. And right now, I think they're recognizing they're going to need to do some things to make the game feel more like an MMO and make it feel like it's a living, vibrant world where you're playing with alongside a lot of other people. But they're doing things like free character transfers to consolidate the servers because they've had so much subscriber attrition that sometimes you're logging in and not seeing anybody else. But I just wonder if it's a little too late. I really do.
Well, that particular thing is not something that's new to MMOs. I mean, that's existed just about in any MMO ever has had some kind of contraction. I do agree that it's fairly early for this kind of contraction.
Mm-hmm.
I think also that that it's just so much more noticeable in Star Wars: The Old Republic because they intentionally did things like shard the servers to try and keep the play experience very fluid, to try and keep lag down, to try and make it feel like you are the most important guy in that universe.
Okay, Dave, you got to help me out there a little bit. Shard the servers. I'm
sorry.
not.
So what they're doing is if you log on and there are too many, they basically set a limit on how many players they want you to be able to interact with or see at once.
Oh, okay.
That way you don't get slowed down by having them running around on your screen and things like that.
If there's 50 people for Empire on Alderaan, it's going to create a new instance of Alderaan for the next people that go into that zone.
Right.
Okay. That's very similar to what they're doing in Guild Wars 2.
Yes.
Very, very similar.
Yes. I'd say it's almost exactly like it. And the problem is that when you already have a small, kind of a reduced size population, there are times when you're logging on and you'll see up in the upper left-hand corner how many people are there with you. There'll be 8 people. And you're like, that's not a lot of people.
That's not exactly massively multiplayer.
No, not at all. And, I think those numbers are starting to go up. I logged in the other day and there were like 60 people. Okay, but it's still, even that much is not that much. So...
And another thing there is that necessarily, could that be game population or could it also be the way that they're handling the game? I mean, there's no hub zone.
Right.
And it's not like, okay, there's the fleet, but that really doesn't count because you can pretty much do everything that you want to do from any planet, which is honestly a great thing from a player perspective. But it does make your world feel more empty because it's not like logging into World of Warcraft and going to Stormwind or Orgrimmar or whatever, depending on what faction you are.
Very true.
Because, in World of Warcraft, you go to Stormwind and it's like, oh, wow, look at all of these people.
And the fleets, like you said, they are as close as you're going to get to the hub. And, you really don't need to necessarily go there. And I think that some of the new stuff that they were working on, some of the stuff they announced, at E3, that they were working on and doing, the big group finder and things like that. These are all good ideas that are going to help people group up, but I just wonder.
I don't know why they didn't put a group finder in at the very beginning, considering I literally did none of the dungeons because it was too difficult to find a group.
I mean, I did a couple of them just because I had to, for the purposes of the review, but you really got to go out of your way. You've got to be that guy that's like basically like whispering to every single person, like everybody else in the room with you, to try and find somebody who'll do it.
It reminds me of Final Fantasy XI because I remember sitting as a monk and being looking for group Yatunga Jungle for literally hours on end, getting a group, losing 4,000 experience because I died, and ending up a lower level than I started.
Now, they've already said, I forget who said it, but somebody from BioWare, or maybe it was EA, said, oh yeah, we're already starting to think about free-to-play for Old Republic.
Yeah, in fact, I believe that at this point already, you can play for free up to level 15.
Yes.
And the idea there is to, try and, first hits free.
Yeah, first hits free,
now,
kids.
This has been done in other games.
Sure.
But...
Now, I don't necessarily. Rob, you just said free to play like it was a awful thing, like the plague.
No. That came out way worse. I understand that lots of games have gone free to play. I think it's kind of surprising they're already talking about that this early in the game's life cycle. I think that's a problem.
Yeah, I think it is surprising this early.
Yeah, of course, Old Republic is going to go free to play at some point, but for them to already start talking about it now, I mean, that's basically a tacit admission of, yeah, we done messed up.
Oh, well, I think that the subscription model certainly has contracted more quickly than the whole genres bubble. Mm-hmm. Consider this: Sony Online no longer has any subscription games once Vanguard goes free to play. These are the guys who were once the vanguards of. They have a game called.
Well
Vanguard.
played, sir.
They were once the vanguards of the subscription MMO with Ultima Online and, or not Ultima Online. That's EA. I'm derp. With EverQuest and EverQuest 2 and EverQuest and EverQuest. Really just EverQuest, but. It's more and more companies are going free to play. You look at Nexon, and Nexon posts huge margins on their games. And I think that kind of a AAA title going free to play is not necessarily a bad thing. Going free to play this early, yeah, you can argue that. But Age of Conan, Lord of the Rings Online, I'm missing one. There was another AAA MMO that went free to play within 2 years of its launch. Star Trek Online. Mm-hmm. Now, what I would see as a truly negative thing is if they did what Final Fantasy XIV did, which was, oh crap, our game sucks. You can just play for free forever.
For a while.
Yeah.
Until we get our act together.
It was like a year and a half or something like that.
Yeah. That's a really bad sign. But so bringing us back around to Elder Scrolls Online, the first time they showed that game, it basically looks, like World of Warcraft, and it's going to be a cooldown placed MMO.
Well, they said that they were trying to have a more action oriented combat system. It wasn't let's wait for cooldowns.
Sure, but now. Why do we play the Elder Scroll games for? We play them for immersion and storytelling.
Well, and those are things that you play Elder Scrolls for. I gotta step back. You play Elder Scrolls for storytelling.
Well, I hope for interesting stories, and sometimes I get them. But I play for the immersion factor, and I think one of those two can be done with an MMO. I think the storytelling can possibly be done. I think Old Republic has shown us that. But I think a lot of dude bros play Skyrim. I mean, kids in the dorm play Skyrim because it's like, look what all I can do in this world. I can screw around with it. It's a big open sandbox. And, they're kind of not going to be able to do that.
You know what? They've even cut back there significantly since Morrowind.
Sure.
Sure. In Morrowind, you could create a magical item that gave you 5,000% speed and made you fly.
That game I need to play. I need to go back and play Morrowind.
You know what? My dad, who happy Father's Day, even though he doesn't listen to the podcast, but it's Father's Day when we're recording this, but he's at Legoland with the grandkids. But
not your kids.
No, I don't have kids.
Okay, I was gonna.
My brother's kids.
Okay,
but he would be like, John, come here. I made this great item, and he'd show me something that did something absolutely crazy. And he would do that. That guy must have played Morrowind for 1,000 hours, and I'm not being hyperbolic there.
Yeah, and I think that you're right that they've cut down on that significantly. Skyrim is not nearly as open-ended as Morrowind or Oblivion in a lot of ways, but I just don't know what they're trying. To me, this game is striking 6 years too late. This game is the response to, wow, look at that World of Warcraft, make some money. I want some of that money. And they were just really freaking late getting to the party. Like, the party has been over since, it is now Sunday morning. That party happened on Friday. And it feels like they're showing up way too late to be relevant. And, you know, I just don't understand what they're doing. Like, I'm shocked by it.
Well, I agree in some ways. You know, I do think that they're at a point where they're looking at a market that's not where it was when they started the game, because, you know, this is an MMO that looks like it's releasing next year, which means it's been in development for probably 5 years.
I think that's fair. That's fair.
You know, so they're looking at a completely different market than it was from what they started. But, you know, putting in another year of work to have a completed product to put on the market and make some of your money back versus nothing, well, yeah, that's an easy decision to make.
Sure. I mean, the product is definitely going to go out there. I mean, I think on one of the podcasts I listened to, I think it was 8-4 Play, they talked about, are we going to get Last Guardian? And one guy was like, yeah, we're definitely going to get Last Guardian because they need to make some money back. Like, may not be a great game when it comes out, but they're going to make some money back on it. They're going to release it. And, you know, I just think that if Bethesda was smart, and they are smart guys. We know they're smart guys. They make great products. They would sit down and go, we need to distinguish this game from the rest of the MMO pack. I mean, Terra has its combat. Guild Wars has its free roaming quest system. It seems like this game's going to have that 3 faction system, which could be something really special. It's very Asheron's Call, I believe. Did I get the reference right for the old people in the room? With factions, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Asheron's Call. Wait, no, Dark Age Camelot.
Damn!
Oh, that's it, yeah.
Dang it. All right, fair enough. I got close. Close. And so they may hit on something really special there, and that's what they need to be showing. They need to show what distinguishes this from other MMOs. Because I think Old Republic has kind of shown that even with a mega IP like Star Wars, and let's not argue whether or not Star Wars is still a mega IP. Let's assume for sake of argument that it is.
There's no argument there. Like, it's...
Well, some people say that the whole franchise has been sullied and it's not ever going to reach the heights that it used to be. Whatever.
From a business perspective, I think.
That you don't get much bigger.
Argument, yeah.
So I just think that if that game is struggling a little bit, I think Elder Scrolls is in a lot of trouble.
I guess I'd be interested to see what type of money they're spending. I mean, one thing we don't cover on RPG Fan, just how many little free-to-play MMOs there are out there, and
there's
they
a Dragon
survive
Ball
for
MMO
years, and they make money, they make profit.
Yeah.
And we look at you might look at them and say these games are pretty stupid, but people are playing them and they're making money. Yeah. I think the difference is that something like Knights of the Old Republic, that cost allegedly $200 million to make. I mean, that's where you're really putting a lot of eggs in that basket. I'd be interested in Elder Scrolls Online is the same type of thing. You're expecting a AAA product. So I do agree that I almost feel like you have to do something to distinguish yourself, and I'm wondering what that is. With that much money at stake.
I think we need to have Dave on the podcast more because I love his business perspective.
Sorry.
We have a very interesting dynamic here. We have a teacher, a web design guy, a student, and a businessman. I feel like we're a party from Chrono Cross. I'm just massively confused right now.
I want to be Robo.
You are not. Chrono Cross. Now Chrono Cross.
I want to be Robo.
Chrono Cross, you die. Spoilers.
I want to be Robo.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I'll be Magus and just hate on everything.
All right. Let's move on. I want to talk a little bit about Persona 4 Golden.
Yay!
So we were talking about the Vita earlier. Did you like Persona 4?
Damn straight I did. All
right, it's Persona 4 with more stuff and a whole bunch of really cool extras. Like you can unlock, what was it? Not music videos, but recordings of concerts that they did of Persona music in Japan and commercials from Japan and lots of stuff from Japan.
I'm seeing a theme.
And well, Atlas said that they intend to localize everything that is possible for them to localize there. So
That's awesome.
So I mean, there's really not much to go into here. If you don't know about Persona 4, go to RPG Fan, click reviews, go to PlayStation 2, read one of the Persona 4 reviews.
We like it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game, one of the best RPGs from Japan over the past few years. And it's prettier on Vita, and it's got more content, and yeah, I mean, what more could
Difficult
you
to
ask
go
for?
wrong.
Yeah, it's a great game. And speaking of SMT, I am playing Nocturne, and I will be able to talk about that on the next podcast. So,
Ooh.
little hint there of things to come.
And I'm gonna go off the RPG train a little bit while we're on Persona and talk about Persona 4 Arena.
Yeah,
The fighting game.
Okay, so my last question was, do you like Persona 4? My next question is, do you like BlazBlue?
If I can Blaze Blue to me was like trying to learn calculus. I was just like, oh my god, I'm so confused, but I'm having fun.
Okay, then you will be confused and having fun with Persona 4 Arena. It's made by Arc System Works, which are the BlazBlue guys. It's got crazy crap going on with all your favorite Persona characters.
Okay,
And
Teddy.
yes, I do believe Teddy is in.
Yes.
It's got characters from both Persona 3 and Persona 4.
Yuki-chan's in danger. See?
that was eerie.
Was that good? Or was
I
that
thought it was pretty good.
Like, I got mad, so it was good.
Oh, boy.
Persona 4 Arena. It's like learning calculus with Rob. I think they've got a tagline.
Yeah, so it's pretty much BlazBlue with now when I say it's like BlazBlue, it actually has different underlying system. It's not like they took the BlazBlue engine and stuck Persona art on it. It is a brand new fighting game, but much like when you play games from Capcom, fighting games, they tend to play pretty similarly, even if they have different gameplay systems. If you play fighting games from Namco, even if they have new gameplay systems, they play pretty similarly. Same deal here. You're playing another Arc System Works games. It plays pretty similarly to BlazBlue, even though it's got different systems.
Cool. Are we going to cover it or no?
No, it is not under RPG Fan coverage. Apparently, it's got a pretty hefty story mode, though. Atlas said it's their largest localization project in regards to voice acting.
Wow, that's saying something. Holy crap.
So, yeah, I'm really interested to see it. I mean, it's something that's definitely going to appeal to fighting game fans and RPG fans, and there seems to be a pretty fair overlap there. So, yay, more Persona.
Yay. Can I complain about David Cage's new game? Are we going to cover
No.
that? Oh.
We'll probably end up covering it because it's an adventure game. But
Ah!
in regards to, you asked me, can I complain about that? And I'm telling you, no.
Okay. It did look interesting. It's great to have Ellen Page, getting work and basically being hired to say nothing for 3 minutes worth of a demo. But, hey, that's cool. I'm not working for Sony, so I don't make decisions for them.
So, yay. Let's go on. Dave and I actually saw Virtue's Last Reward, a little bit of it.
Yes.
Which is the 3DS and Vita sequel to 999.
Yes!
Guess what? It's like 999, except
Yeah.
Like I don't know really. We can't go and be like, oh my god, check out this new gameplay thing, or it's got 3D rooms as opposed to 2D backdrops.
Yeah, that was like the one change that I noticed in the gameplay. You can kind of drag the stylus around to look around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a visual novel. It's not as if they have these brand new gameplay systems every time around. It's based around kind of the prisoner's dilemma and game theory, where kind of you're partnered up with someone and you can choose to betray them, they can betray you, or you can both work together. And kind of there's a point system. They didn't go into great detail. It's something that I have a feeling will be explored in the game much better than I can explain it here. But pretty much if you betray too much or something like that, you die. much like how you would blow up in 999 for whatever reasons.
I'm okay with this.
Like, we're excited to see it. Hopefully, one thing that I know a lot of people liked about 999, but I was not so fond of. I would like to be able to kind of skip segments that I've already played.
Oh yeah, that was a little annoying in that game. And when I say a little annoying, I mean actually a lot annoying.
Yeah, I know that you could skip through the dialogue and have it go really fast, but I'd rather just say, take me to the next choice.
Yeah. But I'm excited for that. And that's going to be 3DS and
Vita.
And Vita. So that's awesome.
So, I guess, sorry, I got the name slightly wrong. I just called it Virtue's Last Reward. It's Zero Escape Virtue's Last Reward.
And what do we think it's going to be called in America? Smile Family, Wish Time, Happy Hour?
No. That's what it is. No. That is the North American.
Oh, God.
The Japanese name was Good People Die.
I think that's a better title, actually.
Way better name.
Oh, I'm sorry. It was Extreme Escape Adventure. Good People Die.
Okay, get rid of the Extreme Escape Adventure, which makes it sound like they're going to make a series of these. Like,
Very verbose.
yeah, you're going to make a series of the. Are they going to call it Saw eventually and just keep retconning the crap out of it until it makes absolutely less sense than a Kingdom Hearts game?
No, you know what? Honest to God, I've played the Saw games, and while they're not horrible, they're not great either. I would love to see the Chunsoft guys make like a Saw game.
Oh God, they got the chops for it.
You know, what really makes me sad is we didn't get the one Chunsoft visual novel for Wii, which got straight 10s from Famitsu in Japan.
Yeah, but so did like Final Fantasy 12.
But yeah, well, I liked Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah, I like Final Fantasy 12.
Final Fantasy 12 is okay.
It's probably not straight 10s.
Hey, you know what game is okay? Dark Souls.
That game is the Lord Jesus Christ. I will not have you speak poor of it.
It's okay. I mean, I recognize that game exists, but I don't think it was my savior.
Oh, God. Philistines, all of you. Okay.
Ooh, can I talk real quickly about Record of Argrest War 2?
Sure.
Which has only because it probably had the funniest special edition pack in. All right, like the limited edition when that comes out. This is basically a sequel to the already Record of Argrest War. It's about as like your classic kind of tactical RPG type thing. But one of the things that comes with it, one of the things you can do in the game is you can try to court, various ladies, of course, in the game. And like when you marry them, then you have kids and you go across multiple generations. Well, the limited edition comes not just with a large art book, not just with a heart-shaped compressed towel, all right, that inflates when you put it in the water, but it comes with a blow-up doll of one of the female characters.
Oh.
Now, when they say blow-up doll, it's actually it's like 4 or 5 inches tall. It's not a blow-up
it's not like a
doll.
full-size thing, but still, you can go out and get a game, in a couple months. Actually, it comes out pretty soon here.
Yeah, I think it's
June 26th.
Yeah, probably when you listen to this, it's about a week from when you listen to it. So.
I just had to mention that because that was my favorite. I got the biggest chuckle out of that particular limited edition.
Yeah. One other game from Axis is they announced Ragnarok Tactics, which is pretty much Final Fantasy Tactics but with Ragnarok classes. Coming out really late. It's in November and it's a PSP game.
Ooh.
So I'm interested to see it. I mean, I like my tactical RPGs. But I think that's kind of a not the best platform and time.
But you can still play PSP games on Vita, right? You just have to download them from the store, right?
As long as they are, as long as they're actually made to work with Vita. Not every PSP game is on the Vita store.
See, that I gotta say that's one of the reasons I don't want to pick up. I'm so sick and tired of having to look at Wikipedia articles to see if something will work on my system that I'm just I don't want to do that anymore.
It's more and more games come out every week that they make work with it. It is frustrating. Like Gungnir, which just came out this last week, which I am behind on my review for, and I apologize to all of our readers. Gungnir, the digital version, does not work on the Vita. Now they say that hopefully it will soon. So
What do they have to do? Just rewrite aspects of the code?
you know what? I honestly don't know. I mean, the Vita is essentially running a PSP emulator.
Yeah,
So
that's why I'm kind of surprised that they need to do that. So.
well, no, but well, the emulators are funky things. Like they have access to the BIOS and all that, and all the. I'm sure that they've got the libraries built into the Vita, but I don't know. It's finicky because it's not the same hardware. You know, it's
Right.
not going.
My question is, if this one thing that Microsoft really got right, and here I go doing the business thing again. One thing that Microsoft really got right with the Xbox 360 was that if you designed your game using, DirectX libraries and things like that, it could run on the PC under Windows and it could run on Xbox with a minimum of effort.
You know, and they did the same thing with even their indie games. Their indie games run the XNA platform, which is it's
Exactly.
It's DirectX with the additional libraries, but that is something that's good. And I think that
I guess I just wonder, Sony has full control over both of these platforms. Why it's so difficult? You know, I mean, obviously, you're not going to be able to just do multiple systems like that with no changes at all. It's unrealistic. But I just wonder why it's so tricky.
Well, I think it was the same with the PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 3, where they changed the architecture for whatever reason. You know, the 60 gig that I've got sitting here actually has the PlayStation 2's video card in it.
Yeah, it has the freaking emotion engine built in.
You know, it's got the entire PlayStation 2 chipset in it, and that's why it plays PlayStation 2 games.
That's not emulation. That's called it's got PS2 guts in it.
Yeah. So, I know they changed stuff up with the Vita, but I don't know. It's, there's still just about every RPG that you would want is available on Vita in the store, as long as it was available on the PSP store, because there are a couple of Square games that are missing from that, but...
No, I just hate this stuff. I hate having to look online. Does this work? Can I buy this online? Like, again, this is why I'm going like PC games like crazy.
It's really easy, actually, if you want to figure out if you can buy a game on the Vita, on your Vita. You just go into the store and see if it's there.
Okay, that isn't so bad.
Because it's not like you can buy a game on your Vita that doesn't work on your Vita. The store filters it down to only games that work on the Vita.
Okay.
So, I've got one last game to talk about, and I know that we're coming up on time here soon. And I know Dave wanted to go to 38 Studios. And I've got to pause to make sure that I get this name right. Penny Arcades on the Rain-Slick Precipice of Darkness 3.
I think you got it right.
Yes, I did. Which is amazing. So, for anyone who's unfamiliar with the Penny Arcade on the Rain-Slick Precipice of Darkness games, the original two were developed by Hothead and were fairly standard RPGs, but they were written by the Penny Arcade guys. Had the art style, they were very funny, etc., etc. Hothead decided that the game, I don't know if it was because they did fully 3D games. I don't know if it was because it wasn't profitable for them or whatever. They chose not to go beyond the second game. And so around the time that Zeboyd Games published Breath of Death 7, they were approached by the fine guys at Penny Arcade, and they said, we want a 16-bit number 3 Penny Arcade game. And Zeboyd said, okay.
And that's what makes them awesome.
Yes, well, there's only 2 of them, so it's not as if there was a bunch of decisions. It's not like, well, we need to talk to corporate. Bill talked to Robert, and they agreed. So
they could have talked to Robert and agreed.
You're not the right Robert. But no, actually, Robert Boyd's a great guy. I actually got to meet him for the first time. He used to post on our boards a lot. He's a huge RPG fan, and actually that shows in his games. The battle system in the new game is kind of a turn-based Grandia style system, where it takes however long for your action to come forth, and you can interrupt people while they're in the middle of taking an action and all that kind of fun stuff. But the game is very, very funny, as you would expect. Robert's other games, Breath of Death 7 and Cthulhu Saves the World, were both kind of parodies of the RPG genre as a whole. And in the same way, that's what Penny Arcade is, except it's built in this 1920s Penny Arcade world that runs parallel. And it's good. I mean, it's very funny. They had Jerry Holkins, who's the writer of the comic, come in, work with Robert on the dialogue, and it's good. We've actually we'll have a review of that when the game is released. It was actually pushed up. It was originally supposed to come out in July. It's coming out the 25th now of June. So that's one of the nice things about having kind of an indie studio is they were surprised by the lack of bugs they found in the final build, so they are polishing it up and releasing it.
All right. I mean, I'm excited for that game. I didn't play the other two titles, but I really like the Zeboyd games. I think they have good ideas, and I'm willing to play that. Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Do we want to talk about the debacle now?
Right after I say, real quick, that Torchlight 2 was my favorite game at E3, and when it comes out, everybody should get it. Done.
Here we go.
No, he did it right. No. That Rob was like Dark Souls for hours on end, and Dave is just like, yeah, that Torchlight game, you should get it. I'm happy with that. We can move on.
Well, it cost you as much as that Elder Scrolls expansion.
I gotta say, I've been playing a lot of Diablo 3, lots and lots of Diablo 3, and I gotta say that until they do some heavy-duty balancing, I'm getting to the point where I really don't want to play anymore. I've gotten to the advanced difficulty levels. I'm seeing the significant problems with their balancing, and it's really not been fun. Once you hit Hell mode in that game, it's not only that the game gets hard, the game's not fun anymore. You will run into encounters with enemies that you literally can't kill. And with a game that's very based around loot and around numbers, you're not going to get past those areas. And I got to say, I'm a little annoyed with Diablo 3 right now, so maybe it's time to join up with the Torchlight hype train.
There's plenty of room for both. I think they appeal to different
is.
Audiences, and I think that's what's going to make, Torchlight 2 is sticking with some of the old school stuff, that make again, you could make the argument that Torchlight was the real sequel to Diablo 1 and 2, since those were the designers. So they're kind of sticking with the model that's worked for them.
Yeah,
and adding some more features and adding multiplayer. It's really a lot of fun.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. I think Dave's right. I think there's room for both games, but Diablo 3, based off of what they've said, and their next big patch is coming out soon. They have a lot of work to do with that game because it's getting to the point where it's unplayable for me, and I'm not having fun. There's a very big difference between making something challenging and making it just wow, this is getting sick. And they're approaching that with me right now, and I've gotten to the point where I'm not really enjoying my time playing the game.
Can't you just buy yourself a new...
It doesn't. Okay, so full transparency here. This entire time I've been playing Diablo, so I've actually gotten really good at being able to talk and play Diablo at the same time. It is not fun to run into enemies that have the ability to wall you in place, reflect damage, and insta-kill you in one shot.
That's fun.
And even though my damage output can be tremendously high, I may not be able to kill them fast enough. So it starts turning into a Big Daddy scenario from the original BioShock, where it's you go up, you do a lot of damage to it, you die, and then you run up to it again. It's recovered a little bit of health, but you then proceed to damage it some more, and it's a war of attrition, and eventually you kill it. And Diablo 3, when I reached Hell mode, I was having a blast with it through Nightmare, through normal Nightmare. I reached Hell mode, and that's what the game's turning into, and I'm getting really annoyed. The difficulty spike has been insane, and from what people are telling me, they're like, that's nothing. Wait till you get to Inferno, where the game's unplayable right now. And I gotta say, I'm kind of I might be done with Diablo 3 right now until they make some significant balance changes, if they want to do that. So, hey.
Yeah, the modding community will take care of it.
Oh, wait.
Oh,
That was a good
Oh,
troll.
sorry.
That was a good troll. That was a very good troll. I like that. But it's true. And they're the gatekeepers now. And, I may not be game to keep playing their game the way it is right now. And I'm not saying that as a threat. I'm just saying, like, it doesn't hold a lot of appeal to me. It doesn't hold appeal to me to be killed with my Demon Hunter in one hit from almost every enemy in the game. And they're like, yeah, that's how we designed the Demon Hunter. Like, what? Okay. So, Torchlight 2, awesome.
yes.
I'm
Get
excited
it.
for it.
Get it when it comes out.
Is there a necromancer in it, please?
I do not believe so. They actually have some neat, weird, like kind of hybrid classes. Quite a few of them. It's fun.
Okay. Well, was there any?
For a 20 spot? It's really. I guarantee you'll get your money's worth.
Have they announced a date yet?
Nah. When
summer.
we sat down and talked to them, they were saying they were looking at late July, early September. Is that correct, John? I think that was what you said.
Yeah, it's summer.
Yeah.
All right. So, is it time to talk about 3/8 Studios?
Sure, and this was an interesting topic to kind of ask people about, kind of off the record at E3. Just because, it was so close to E3 when all this stuff started blowing up with 38 Studios in the state of Rhode Island. And, now there's a federal, inquiry going on into the money. I guess we should start at the beginning, right? Basically, Curt Schilling, when he retired from baseball, was looking to start a game studio, and originally he was going to base it in Massachusetts. And part of that was he was hoping to get economic development money and tax breaks from the state of Massachusetts to base his company there. This type of thing is not super unusual. Pretty much every state in the United States has some kind of economic development office. It's one of the very few ways that the government can actually spend money directly on job creation by basically being something like venture capitalists. I'm not leaving politics totally aside. This is just how it works. All right. And the Economic Development Office of Massachusetts was not willing to basically give Curt Schilling and 38 Studios everything they were asking for. But the state of Rhode Island, which has a very high unemployment rate, came in and said, hey, maybe this is our chance to kind of establish an East Coast game development studio type of presence. Nobody really has it on the East Coast. It's all kind of on the West, and Canada's been doing a great job luring game companies. Maybe there's a market there that we can take advantage of. So the Rhode Island Economic Development Corporation basically gave them a very attractive, guaranteed loan offer, promised them a series of tax breaks, things like that. And so Curt Schilling basically had Massachusetts and Rhode Island bidding against each other and ended up in Rhode Island. All right. Then they started work developing the MMO. All right. The Project Copernicus, which we'll now never see probably. In the process of developing this game, they're basically developing that game with a combination of venture capitalism from, unspecified venture capitalist firms, a combination of Rhode Island, money from the state of Rhode Island, money which is provided from state bonds that they issued, for this purpose, that the bonds get purchased by private investors, by, money funds, things like that, and Curt Schilling's own money. All right. And the game is developed over a couple of years, and then what happens is Big Huge Games looks like it's going to go under as THQ is having all these problems in 2009. So Curt Schilling swoops in and 38 Studios swoop in and buy Big Huge Games from THQ. So they've already doubled down now kind of their investment without a product existing yet. So, I'm sure his accountants were probably, weeping tears of blood over this type of risk. All right, but he was very confident, and the idea was that since Big Huge Games had already had a game engine, already had a game, all they needed to do was kind of, retrofit it for the setting of Amalur, and it could be kind of an intro to Amalur and bridge the gap, kind of introduce everybody to the game universe for when the MMO gets released in, at that time, they were thinking 2012. Turned out that wasn't going to be the case. So what happens is the way the finance works in video games is kind of interesting because, you always see the publisher and the developer, kind of on our game stats on RPG Fan. And publishers offer different kind of contracts. You can offer money up front, a fixed sum, all right? Or you can offer a percentage of the profits and things like that. Now we know from some of the public information that's been released that what happened is Big Huge Games and 38 Studios made a deal with EA where EA gave them $35 million, all right, for just basically a big lump sum up front for the publishing rights for Kingdoms of Amalur. They could make additional money if they sold more than, I think it was 3 million copies of the game. They would start getting a percentage of the sales. Basically, a completely unrealistic number. They were thinking that the 35 million will basically cover the cost to make this game, and then we'll continue making the MMO. I'm having a hard time figuring out how that math works because I don't know what it cost them to buy Big Huge Games in the first place, and considering the salaries of the various employees, it's hard to make that math make sense. But that was in fact the deal. They basically were paid $35 million from EA, and that was everything they made for Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning. Then, you basically have a situation that comes up where they can't pay a scheduled payment to the state of Rhode Island. Typically, these type of things work where they're getting lent a bunch of money, and then what happens is you have to pay basically like a token amount back once in a while, just as part of the interest payment, and also as like a good faith payment. It was a small amount compared to the amount that they were being lent at that time. They had to basically pay on schedule about $1.2 million back to the state of Rhode Island. They couldn't make this payment. Not only could they not make this payment, they then said, "Oh, we'll drive a check down to you." They hand deliver the check. The check bounces. All right. So now you've got the governor of Rhode Island, Lincoln Chafee, who at this time Lincoln Chafee was very much against Rhode Island ever giving 38 Studios the tax breaks or the loan in the first place back when they offered it. So he already has a bit of a kind of a political interest in this, because he took a big stance against it at the time of the deal. Now he's the governor, and he says, well, we need to open up, you need to open up the books. What's going on here? Why can't you make the payment? A lot of statements get made about how the company hasn't paid its employees in 3 weeks, all of which turn out to be true. You've got a situation where some employees are going to end up with 2 mortgages if the company goes under, because the relocation company that had been hired by 38 Studios hadn't been able to sell some of the houses out on the West Coast that they moved from for anything resembling what they paid for them. Things basically start to spiral downward, and it becomes this war of words between Lincoln Chafee and the Economic Development Office and Curt Schilling. And what you've got now at this point is almost everybody that was involved in the Economic Development Corporation of Rhode Island at the time of the loan, at the time when the loan was approved to Curt Schilling and 38 Studios, has resigned. You've almost got a clean slate now. You've got Lincoln Chafee, who obviously has no interest in extending any additional credit. He's basically saying that he's not going to throw good taxpayer money after bad, and Curt Schilling claims that he stands to lose about $50 million of his own money. A federal investigation is now happening because Curt Schilling and basically Citizens Bank made a personal loan to Curt Schilling of a few $1 million. He's not able to pay that back. They're now suing him, and you've got a federal investigation coming in to see who was involved, what was the vetting process in the state of Rhode Island for approving these loans, et cetera, et cetera. The losers in all this, obviously, are the people that didn't get picked up by Epic Mega Games. All right, obviously those employees, former employees of Big Huge Games that didn't get picked up by them, they're kind of left holding the bag. And of course, to a certain extent, although not as much as is reported, to a certain extent, the Rhode Island taxpayer, because basically if they don't make any money back, which it doesn't seem like they will, the only thing that the state of Rhode Island now actually owns is the game assets, which on the open market are probably really not worth much of anything, because you're going to have to pick them up and then hire a full staff and then, try to do something with this stuff.
See, one thing that I find interesting there is, and you have more information on this than I do in regards to the financial aspects. I think that Amalur sold 1.2 million copies. Now, I think that probably the MMO assets are worthless, but I think that the game as a whole, or the property as a whole, might actually be worth something. Enough to recoup the costs, I'm sure no. But
yeah, I mean, I guess what would you put a price? And this is where it's tricky. Is like, what would you put a price tag at?
See, and that's what's tough. But you know what? The same thing happened a couple of years back when Bethesda bought Fallout.
Right.
Fallout was essentially a dead franchise at that point.
I mean, my head is just swimming right now because I do not understand economics, finances at all. Like, I am a product of our current education system where we do not teach kids how to properly handle money and what it means to invest. Like, I had no idea what a credit rating was until like 5 years ago. Like, I had no idea what any of this stuff was. And I'm just baffled that something this bad could happen.
The best case scenario, some analysts have put like John is suggesting, some analysts have put the value of the Amalur and kind of game universe at $20 million.
Oh, I think that's crazy. I don't think they're going to get anything close to that.
Yeah, $20 million for that universe.
But let's say they do. That barely begins to put a dent in what is now looking like estimates put it anywhere between 75 and 110 million owed in loans at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, even if you were to get what I think is a projection, this money's never coming back. 13 Studios just recently filed for bankruptcy protection. All right. This was just last week, I believe. And what this gives them is a chance to try and kind of get their house in order so that they don't get more lawsuits coming at them. But it's really, really a bad story. If you're looking to see new AAA companies, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon anywhere, partially due to this fiasco.
I think you're right. And, one of the big complaints coming out of E3 was, where's the new IPs? We got a couple new IPs with, The Last of Us and Watch Dogs. And there were a couple real standouts, but for the most part, there weren't. And people are like, well, why aren't they making new IPs? Because new IPs are risky. It's really risky to go out there and try to build a new IP. I mean, Ubisoft famously made Assassin's Creed into a mega franchise, but it took them the better part of 2.5-3 years to do it by showing the game at E3, by getting people excited, by, a huge marketing blitz, by having a storyline that, conveyed, oh, what's really going on in this game? Well, we're not going to tell you. They had to market that game and spend years to get people excited to buy that title. Not a lot of companies have that luxury. And, Amalur, I think, was a damn fine game. I really enjoyed it. But, they were fighting an uphill battle right now. And I think for anybody to say, oh, it's real easy to go out and create a new IP, no, it is remarkably difficult. I mean, there's a reason why Blizzard has not made a new IP since what? Since StarCraft? They have relied on their IP because I think Blizzard realizes that if their new MMO Titan, if that isn't connected with any of their universes, that's a huge risk for them.
Just for a second. You're talking about a game that sold at least 1 million copies and wasn't profitable.
Yeah.
It sell 1 million copies of anything. I mean, to have that type of success and still not actually have monetary success, I mean, that is a real hard sell.
Yeah. Well, I think it'd be really interesting to see what happens with the Amalur franchise. I think that there is a company out there that is willing to buy it, but I think that it's probably going to take, I don't know how long because Rhode Island's probably going to say, okay, we will sell this franchise for X amount of dollars, and it's going to be something obscene that no one in their right mind would pay for a franchise of that type.
Yeah, and then it's going to come down to something a little bit more reasonable, hopefully. I mean, I think your guess about BioWare picking it up, EA picking it up, I think that could happen.
Apparently, EA passed on Amalur 2 based on internal politicking.
Wow, and that game was in development, correct?
Yes.
Amalur 2 was the sequel to the action RPG.
Yeah, Reckoning 2.
Yeah, Reckoning 2. Yeah, that's a little bit easier. Yeah. Man,
On the plus side, we are keeping the big minds behind big huge games, with Epic Baltimore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy to see that a lot of people are getting picked up. I think the industry really stepped in a good way to say, hey, these are talented folks that need work, and they're going to build us good games. They're going to build us cool worlds, and that's what they're doing. And I think that's great. That's a solidarity in the video game community that is really, really special, and I hope they never lose that. I mean, it's like John has said before, like, nobody sets out to make a bad video game. Like, you don't have a crew of people that's standing around going, how can we make this game really suck? Like, people are trying to do the best with what they have. I have a buddy who's made SpongeBob SquarePants games, and he's like, you don't even know how much we try to make these games good. And that's really hard, and I think that the industry needs to help each other when it comes to things like this.
Folks at big huge games, you just got to feel for them in the sense that this is now the second time in 4 years that they've needed somebody to step in and save them.
Yeah.
And they're making terrible games.
Yep.
Oh no, their games have all been fantastic.
That's what's unbelievable about it. You can still make good games and still fail. In certain marketing aspects of the video game industry. So it can be tough.
Well, we're losing Dave, so I think with that we should probably call it a day here. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the podcast, this E3 special. We're going to be returning in probably 2 weeks with another big show. I got Nocturne to talk about. Be excited. And I'm sure Steven and I will have a lot more to say about Diablo 3. Hopefully we'll have a new patch by then.
Pokemon Nobunaga.
Yeah, Pokemon Nobunaga. Like, we got good games coming out. The summer is upon us, and it is time to read and play games and be merry, and it is very exciting. Again, always make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes or the RSS feed. Send us that email. We really like answering questions. We didn't really have a good place to put it for the E3 show, but we will definitely try to get to more email, some listener mail, and answer some questions, and hopefully rouse some good debates.
That is podcast@rpgfan.com.
The big man comes through. So for everybody on the show, we had so many people, I can't even remember everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you all later.